One of the most important mechanics of modern Persona is the one more system, granting an extra turn if you land a crit or hit an enemy's weakness. The player usually utilizes this to cleanly sweep an entire enemy encounter with ease, but the enemies rarely benefit from this mechanic, so I wanted to see how the game would play out if they could utilize this mechanic way more. So I modified my game to make every playable Persona weak to everything, making any unguarded attack knock someone down and give the enemy an extra turn, that they could combo off another party member to deal massive damage to my whole team, which should make the game significantly harder. In addition to these changes, there are some extra rules that I'm employing to make this game a little more interesting. First, I cannot use DLC Personas since some of them are really good. Second, I cannot lower the difficulty below hard. I have to play on either hard or merciless. That is obviously significantly harder for this run since it amplifies weakness damage by 3 times. Third, I cannot utilize passive abilities to remove weaknesses, so I can't give Joker's personas skills like resist wind or repel fire, and I cannot equip accessories like the Crystal of Vanity that just removes all weaknesses. The counterline of skills are RNG, so I'm allowing myself to use them, and Tetrakan and Makarakan are a one-time use, so they're fine too. Anyway, with the rules explained, I think it's time I started the game. After a brief introductory cutscene, it was time for Joker to escape the casino. He darted across the Mario platforming segment and encountered our first battle. I fired up an Aegon to not lose HP and was hit in return by back-to-back Archidines, dropping Joker in range to die to another 2 attacks. Unfortunately, another Aegon couldn't quite secure the kill, so you'd think Joker would just die now, but just as he was about to die, the enemy's turn just abruptly ended, because the game doesn't want me to die in the tutorial. So after killing that enemy on the next turn, Joker stealthily made his way out the building, encountering a mysterious girl along the way, who effortlessly destroyed a group of enemies in a completely scripted fight, securing Joker a route to escape the casino where he was ambushed and arrested. After he was beat up by Man in Suit, I selected the difficulty. I decided to start with Merciless for now, as I wanted to test if the 3 times weakness damage would make this run unplayable. Now, after signing my name as Joker Persona 5, it was time to flash back to spring, where our objective was to search for Sojiro Sakura, who was the manager at the Cafe LeBlanc. He now gave Joker a place to call home of a dusty attic. On the next day, Joker was introduced to Shujin Academy, and on the way back to LeBlanc, Sojiro says something that isn't important until like another 100 hours into the game. After a night's sleep, Joker's first day at Shujin began, where after taking the train, he encountered a girl which left him so entranced that he proceeded to stare at her for like 30 whole seconds. Once the man with a chin that puts even Waluigi to shame showed up and drove away, Joker ran into Volga Boy, who attempts to lead him to Shujin, but they just end up in a mysterious castle where they are taken as prisoners. Then shortly after, Ryuji got beat up, making Joker super angry, causing him to awaken to his persona Arsene, consequently starting the second battle for this run. That is not that interesting. Like the first battle, Joker literally cannot die, as when he's low, the enemy just doesn't get a turn. So I just attacked them until they died and proceeded on until Joker came across Morgana, who told us how to drop down a bridge leading us to the next battle. This one's a tutorial for weaknesses, where the AI-controlled Morgana killed the Jack-o'-lantern in 2 attacks. Then Joker attacked the Incubus, hoping for Morgana to finish them off on their turn. But he just healed Joker since he was on low HP from the last battle. Then Incubus now just attacked Morgana, got a 1 more, and just killed Joker. On attempt 2, Morgana actually decided to finish off the Incubus on his 1 more turn, allowing Joker to finish off the weakened Jack-o'-lantern. Then from there was just one final battle before we could leave this place, and it was against Pixie that Joker could hit their weakness and just one-shot. After escaping the castle, Joker and Ryuji were told to head back to Shujin, where they were, as expected, scolded by the teachers. On the next day, he encountered fan-favorite character, Student with Ribbon in Hair, then later on met back up with Ryuji, and they figured out how to reach Kamoshida's castle again, which is tied to an app on Joker's phone. Once they were transported back to Kamoshida's castle, they met back up with Morgana and decided to explore deeper inside, where I was given the ambush tutorial that I failed and my whole team got wiped by one Jack-o'-lantern. After skipping through like 4 whole minutes of cutscenes, I got back to where I died before and got the ambush this time so Morgana could just one-shot them. Fortunately, there was a nearby safe room so I could save and not have to skip through those cutscenes again, and that was pretty well timed as the next enemy encounter was against these two, that I can't hit their weaknesses so they just kinda killed me. On my next try, I just used defense to survive long enough that I could run away, allowing me to progress further to the gun tutorial that I died on. Fortunately, on my next try, Morgana attacked before the enemy and killed them, ending the encounter. After a super easy fight against a jack-o'-lantern, I reached the all-out attack tutorial that was easy. With that done, we found this awesome room and shortly after attempted to escape the castle, where we were ambushed by Kamoshida himself, which starts a fight where we die, then Ryuji undergoes his Persona awakening, starting an actual boss fight, where Ryuji fires off 2 Zeos to land one-shots on the Bicorns, Joker now defends to remove his weaknesses, and Ryuji and Morgana just fired off their most powerful attacks to end the battle as soon as possible. Ryuji ends up going down, but enough damage was done that Joker and Morgana could clean up from there. After escaping the palace for the second time, we watch Mishima die, and then Joker and Ryuji investigates the students they saw from Kamoshida's castle. Shortly after this, Joker suggests that they should just call the cops, but that doesn't work, so they decide that they should punish the king by stealing the treasure deep inside Kamoshida's palace. But first, to make sure we know Kamoshida is extra evil, Joker encounters Ann, who comes clean about Kamoshida blackmailing her into being in a relationship with him. Then on the next day, we see Shiho has decided to jump off the school building, and afterwards are told by Mishima that Kamoshida is responsible. So we head over to the PE faculty office to confront him, where he tells us we can't prove him guilty for anything, and that he will report us at the next board meeting. So we then entered his palace and watched 2 easy tutorials. Then we follow this up by fighting 3 easy enemy encounters that, since we can hit their weaknesses, we can just kill them before they can attack us. So I easily reached the next safe room where I was told to head back to find Ann, where she had her Persona awakening and we began a boss fight. That completely destroyed me on my first try. On attempt 2, I just hit his weakness with Ann with Aji and used the one more to deal more damage. Then I just shot him down with guns, and he died before he could land a single attack. Okay, so here is where I realized that I didn't think that Merciless was the hardest difficulty for this run right now. For some bosses, it certainly would be, but for right now, I'm just abusing the extra damage to kill the enemies before they kill me. So I switched to hard and decided to stay on hard until I reached the end of the palace, where I would switch back to Merciless to try to fight Kamoshida. Anyway, I re-attempted this mini-boss here on hard to see how my strategies would differ. To win now, I used Aji and guarded, allowing me to survive, and that was enough to slowly kill them. After leaving the palace, there was a surprise appearance from the best character in the game. Then on the next day, Morgana explained that we need to prepare by picking up some supplies, like the medicine from the clinic and the weapons from the airsoft shop. And after watching student with ribbon in hair evolve into student called Yoshizawa, the tutorial was finally over. We can pretty much do what we want now. So I checked every vending machine for SP recovery items to make the first palace easier to do in a single day. While I was doing this, I found Kamoshida in the school halls, and it forced me to talk to him, triggering some dialogue that I've never seen before. After I collected 6 SP recovery drinks, I was ready to enter the first palace. Inside, I was redirected to the Velvet Room for the fusion tutorial. Here, I just made sure to inherit Aha to fight Archangels at the end of the palace. Now, while I died a few times in the tutorial, now that I have solid elemental coverage with 4 party members, I can pretty much just end regular encounters before they attack me. And this only got easier when I unlocked the baton pass from a tutorial and the stealth mechanic. So now my whole team would always attack first, making it pretty much guaranteed that we'd kill them before they attacked. The only near-death experience I had was against these 3 Agarthion, who survived a Goro into an all-out attack. I tried to not consume SP by just gunning them down, but they resisted that, so one ended up surviving and dealing huge damage. But Joker could easily end the battle now, if he didn't miss. Fortunately, they didn't attack Joker twice, so I could survive and just kill them. The palace was relatively straightforward now. I just had to make sure I didn't fight the very strong red guys, since I couldn't easily kill them. Eventually, I reached the gym, and that was home to the first mini-boss encounter. At the time, I didn't remember if this guy was weak to curse or not, and it turns out he isn't. so I just defended with Mona, Ryuji, and Arn. I now got pretty lucky as they attacked Morgana, who was defending, so they didn't get an extra turn. Now I debuffed their defense and just attempted to kill them before they got another turn to land a charged cleave, but I just barely didn't have enough damage to kill, so they attacked and missed, so I just won. A little further in, I collected the first will seed, and nearby was a chest guarded by a powerful Bereth, who rather than fight, I just knocked down and then ran away. Shortly after this grappling hook segment, there was another will seed, then down these two nearby elevators, there was the third will seed guarded by a mini-boss, who didn't attack me once. I just put them asleep with Joker and Arn to both stop them from attacking and to deal big damage with technicals into all-out attacks. With a defense down debuff to speed the fight up, it didn't take too long to kill them. This next segment was pretty easy, and now we had to gather 2 eyes to stop the giant swinging scythes. Each of them is protected by the mini-boss Eligor. For the first one, I debuffed their defense and just zapped them with Zeos into all-out attacks to deal good damage. Before they could attack, I put them asleep and then easily finished them off with some Zeos. On the floor below, I fought the second Eligor. For this one, I pretty much just repeated my strategy from last fight, with one slight difference of using Zeo with Joker into a Rakunda, which caused me to fall behind on damage, and before killing them, they got a turn and killed Mona and Arn. Fortunately, since their HP was pretty low, Ryuji and Joker could just finish them off with some Zeos. With the 2 eyes in my possession, I could stop the scythes, and from there, it was pretty much a straightforward path to the treasure, so I could leave now and send the calling card, if I wanted. But since I at least wanted to try to fight Kamoshida on Merciless, I decided to grind some levels by just farming this encounter against the 2 angels and the Archangel, which gave a high amount of EXP for this point in the game. Once everyone reached level 11, I stopped grinding, since you get some pretty good abilities there with Tarunda on Arn, Headbutt on Ryuji, and Medea on Mona. Before I left the palace, I did a few fusions to mainly just have some decent personas with the debuff skills. I also completed the available challenge battle that rewarded me with the Duke's Coat for a significant defense boost on Joker. Now with that done, I left the palace and did a little of the social part of the game, which was pretty much just doing crosswords, answering questions correctly, and hanging out with Ryuji. Since I needed 2 more lockpicks to collect all the chests in Kamoshida's palace, I crafted them while I had the chance. I also cleaned out Joker's room so I could feed the plant for more kindness, since I wanted to progress Arn's Confidant, which requires level 2 kindness to do so. On the 22nd, I decided to send the calling card. After Kamoshida discovered the calling card, he got real angry and we immediately entered his palace. I darted for the room with the treasure, we picked it up, but before we could leave, Kamoshida ambushed us and stole it back. After he transformed, it was time to begin the boss fight, but he immediately acted and killed my entire team. I now tried the boss fight around 6 times on Merciless and concluded it was way too hard, and if I wanted to win, I would probably have to grind like 5 to 10 more levels, which I didn't want to do, so I switched back to hard, and while the fight seemed difficult, it certainly seemed possible to beat. At the start, my plan was pretty straightforward, just debuff defense and accuracy with Joker, heal with Mona, and debuff attack with Arn, and just attack with Ryuji. With his attack down, Kamoshida wasn't really that deadly anymore, and with his accuracy down, we could potentially dodge his attacks to stop him chaining some 1-mores. After enough damage was dealt, he healed to full HP with his trophy, and we could now target that. This phase is literally the same as the first one, I just had to maintain my debuffs and constantly heal to stay alive. Once the trophy was defeated, we moved on to the next phase, where Mishima sets up for the kill shot, an attack that I just had to defend to take minimal damage. Now Shiho shows up, and to stop the next kill shot, we either have to kill her or deal 300 damage to Kamoshida. I decided to just kill Shiho since she's weak to everything, and was pretty easy to kill before Kamoshida got a turn. With her now dead, we proceeded on to Kamoshida's final phase, where we're given a choice to send someone to steal the treasure to significantly decrease his stats. I sent Ryuji, but I didn't deal enough damage on the next couple of turns, and Kamoshida noticed him. So I now played a little more aggressively that resulted in Ryuji making progress. But also Kamoshida had a turn where his attack wasn't debuffed, and he just attacked Joker twice and killed him. So I had to do the entire fight again. Fortunately, the first 2 phases of the boss weren't that difficult, and I had no trouble getting back to the final phase, where I changed up my plan, as I used Ryuji to use his attack buff on everyone on my team before I sent him away. This made it much easier to beat the damage check, and Ryuji climbed up twice. But now is where I had some trouble, as both Joker and Mona were low on HP. I could use beads to heal Joker to full, but Mona just kinda kept dying. I still revived him and used his turn to heal Joker. He now died again, and Joker revived him, and Mona healed Joker back. I repeated this until I dealt enough damage for Ryuji to steal Kamoshida's crown, and with significantly increased damage, the fight was easy to win from here. After his big villain breakdown, he gave us the treasure and the palace began to collapse. We managed to escape, meaning now I had 8 days to spend doing whatever I wanted. First, I drank my juice, then I ran over to the DVD store to buy a license to rent some DVDs, and rented one right now that boosts guts, since you need rank 2 guts to advance to Kemi's confidant. Pretty much during the day, I hung out with Ryuji if I could, and if I couldn't, I aimed to raise my social stats. I also made sure to work some hours at the convenience store to unlock a request later on, and worked twice at the flower store for a different request later on, and also to raise my kindness so I could spend time with Arn after the Kamoshida arc. Once I reached level 2 guts, I again was hanging out with either Ryuji or Takemi depending on who was available, and at night I spent time with Sojiro if he was available. Eventually, the big date of the 2nd of May came around, and Kamoshida showed up during the assembly and confessed all of his crimes, resulting in him getting arrested. We now decide to sell Kamoshida's treasure, his Olympic medal, to fund a celebration, which we sold at the airsoft shop and were asked by EY to leave with a bag containing a very good gun that had half the ammo of a normal gun but had a high chance to shock, and since it's a multiple hit attack, it's easy to abuse this to land technicals and down opponents without even using SP. At the celebration, an all-you-can-eat buffet, we got rudely interrupted by the most evil of them all, a bald man. They now decide to continue their work as the Phantom Thieves under the awesome name of the Persona 5s. With the Kamoshida arc over, we could now start progressing Arn's confidant, and we also had free access to roam around in the evening since Sojiro gave us the key to LeBlanc, finally allowing me to work at the beef bowl shop that you need to work at twice to start the Sun Confidant with Yoshida. Then on just the next day, we got a tutorial for Mementos, or the bad part of the game if you want it in more simple terms. Our target was Nakanohara, who was simple enough to beat. I just put him asleep on turns that I could to stop his attacks, and dealt some extra damage with technicals. I also dropped his attack so he couldn't kill Joker, but instead he just killed Ryuji. Fortunately, he didn't get another chance to attack from there, as I just kept putting him asleep until he died. Before his shadow disappeared, he mentioned a man named Madarame, suggesting him for a change of heart. Now we were free to experience the riveting gameplay of Mementos for fortunately just one floor, where we opened the way to progress deeper and were forced to leave Mementos from there. Before leaving, we had a quick encounter with Jose, who just kinda gave us a star. Once we returned from Mementos, we were forced to advance to rank 2 with Mishima, then we had some free time to spend ranking up our confidence and improving social stats, with knowledge being a priority, as if I reached level 2 knowledge, I could get some extra charm for doing well on the upcoming exams on the 11th. Then after the exams ended, we got introduced to the school's new counselor, Takuto Maruki, who talked to us after the assembly and automatically started his confidant. Afterwards, Joker and Arn talked to him for a while, and on the next day, the story began to progress, as we find out Arn has been followed by unforeseen boy who wants to use her as a model for his painting. He now hands Arn some tickets to Madarame's art exhibit, and we go there the next day. It seemed pretty normal, so we then ran over to Madarame's house to question Yusuke, who just kinda says no and we leave him be. But before leaving the area with a PNG background, we use the Metaverse Navigator app to see if Madarame has a palace, which he does, so we go there. Sneak around the outside and observe the inside, containing paintings objectifying his pupils and a giant gold statue. So Arn now accepts Yusuke's modeling request, allowing us to investigate further, but we just end up getting threatened to get turned into the police, setting a deadline of the 5th of June or when Madarame's art exhibit ends. And once I bought some better protectors, I was ready to begin progressing in Madarame's museum. Like Kamoshida's palace, the regular encounters in here were pretty easy. I couldn't really fight the strong enemy of Shikioji, as they had too much health, so my best bet was to just knock them down and run. And speaking of running, a while into the palace, Joker gets split up from the other party members for a while. And with just Joker alone, it was difficult to defeat the enemies before they got a turn and killed Joker, so fleeing here was my best option. Once we met back up with Arn, we could fight as normal, and after rescuing everyone else, we had our first encounter with a treasure demon. Then after a few more easy encounters, I climbed up these stairs, carefully moved past the strong enemy, and used a grappling hook to secure the path to the first will seed. Now I just climbed up and dropped down, then progressed through this door where there was another door that was protected by a large security system, that in order to get past I had to leave the palace. But before I left the palace, I used my remaining SP to easily grind the encounters in the previous room until Joker reached level 16, enough that I could fuse Suzaku, a persona with the Sun Arcana, so I could gain some extra friend points with Yoshida when I started to advance his confidant. After leaving the palace, Arn and Morgana came back the next day to Madarame's place, opening a door that allowed Joker and Ryuji to advance forward, where they encountered a mini-boss. That reminded me that I forgot to switch back to hard, since I was grinding on merciless for the increased EXP gain. To kill this guy, I just used Archie to hit their weakness, and I used the one more to defend. Unfortunately, they got a turn before Ryuji could defend, and he died, but by repeating this strat with Joker, he would take minimal damage and kill him. I even wasted some turns at the end to show that even if I was on hard and dealt less damage, the fight still would have been easy. And after finally deciding to kill the mini-boss, we now shut down the security system, and Arn, Morgana, and Yusuke, who had to run away in the real world, teleported into Madarame's palace. We tried to leave from there, but Shadow Madarame stopped us, and after ranting about how evil he is, Yusuke gets mad and awakens to his persona, starting a boss fight. To start this fight off, I used Yusuke's ice skills to down all the small enemies, then I switched to Joker and tried to land a shock on the big guy with Joker's gun. This failed, and I then guarded to reduce the chance Joker would die. Next I used Miragi to drop the weakened enemies to low HP, and finished off 3 of them with Ryuji's shotgun. With another Bufu, I finished off the final weak enemy, and began to use debuffs on the final guy, who was not really a problem now, and I pretty much just attacked with my strongest attacks until they died. After the fight, Yusuke does some talking that ultimately results in him joining the team to change Madarame's heart. On the next day, the exam results were posted, and since I scored above average, I got 2 charm. Anyway, I now journeyed back into Madarame's palace, ran through the maze-like room, and encountered another mini-boss, where Joker just used his gun to shock the guy on the left, then I baton passed to Yusuke to hit a weakness, then baton passed to Ryuji to gun down one of the foes, and next Yusuke shot down the other. I debuffed the strong guy's attack to help survive, but it ended up being useless as I just landed a shock with Ryuji. Skipping their next turn, and with the technical hits, extra damage, and all-out attacks, I managed to kill them before they could get a chance to attack me again. Then by disengaging the security protocol by entering the password located near the golden Madarame statue, I could access the painting to progress further, and then later encounter a room with a bunch of paintings. The room after that was nothing special, I just had to use the grappling hook to collect the second will seed, and then I entered the Twisted Labyrinth, where the main puzzle is where you have to identify the real Sayuri from the fakes, opening the way to progress further and further until you reach the room with the treasure, that in order to access we had to mess around in the security room, causing a guard to run over, starting a battle against 3 Makami. At the start, I forgot they're immune to gun, leaving my team in position to take a few hits, but we managed to survive, landed a shock and quickly decimated one of them, and the others from there were easy to deal with. A little further in, I ran into the mini-boss guarding the third will seed. Now this fight is actually pretty hard. The boss is really tanky, and they have AoE attacks that deal massive damage, and they can brainwash your whole party to help both heal the boss and dish out high damage. At first, I pretty much was focusing on landing debuffs to increase my own damage and reduce the damage I would take. Arn and Joker were my only 2 party members who could hit their weakness, so they were my best choice to dish out damage. When anyone died or was brainwashed, I pretty much had to use an item to cure it, or the fight could easily snowball out of control until I lost. My first attempt lost because I got pretty unlucky with a Messiah, wiping out 3 of my party members, and this deep into the fight I had ran out of revival items, so Joker could only really attack and hope he got lucky. Despite coming close, he ended up dying to another Psy attack, but this time I came pretty close to winning, so surely it would only take another try or 2 to win. Yeah, turns out my first attempt got pretty lucky, as my next couple of attempts at best could only drop the boss to around 70% of their max HP before they died. There wasn't really much difference I could do. I just needed slightly better luck to dodge the attacks and the brainwashes, and what pretty much decided my victory was Ryuji getting good RNG and landing a shock, skipping the boss's turn, securing us the kill after 2 all-out attacks. After collecting the final will seed, I gained the Crystal of Vanity that I've banned so I can't use it. Anyway, from here it was a mostly straightforward path to the room with the controls for the big hook. That combined with turning off the lights from the security room should allow us to steal the treasure, so we could now leave the palace and send the calling card. But before I did that, I itemized Ame no Uzume to make a weapon for Yusuke that boosted strength by 5 points. I then proceeded to grind out a few more battles to reach level 19 on Joker and level 18 on Yusuke, giving Yusuke access to an AoE physical attack to help against the boss fight against Madarame, and giving Joker a strong persona with Flordrius, who had Crisis Control that decreases weakness damage, very good in this run, and Flordrius also inherited Marukunda, an AoE defense debuff, again useful against Madarame. Once I left the palace, I advanced some of my confidants for a day, and then brought some medicine from Takemi, with some items to revive party members and some other items that healed the whole team. With my preparations complete, I was ready to send the calling card. As expected, it made him angry and we entered his palace to steal the treasure. Before I reached the treasure room, I quickly ran into the Velvet Room to itemize Regent, to make an accessory that grants Attack Master starting a fight with an attack buff, and the accessory also gave a small boost to strength. Then as planned, we stole the treasure and had no choice but to escape through this window. That led to this new area that eventually led to the area with the important door from before, where we check out the treasure to find out it was a fake, and then Madarame shows up with the real treasure, who then explains how he's just kinda evil, making Yusuke angry and Madarame also angry, and the boss fight began. I immediately defended with Joker to stop him from dying, and unfortunately after chaining 2-1-mores, Madarame killed Ryuji and increased their attack, so I had to lower their attack with Arn, who then just immediately died. Yusuke now got a turn and attacked with Vicious Strike. Ryuji's Raging Temper activated and 2 of the paintings died, and another to Joker on his next turn. Madarame's mouth now restored his right eye, who was quickly shot down by Yusuke. Joker then revived Ryuji, who revived Arn, who then debuffed the mouth's attack, who rather than attack just made Arn weak to everything, effectively doing nothing. We now blasted the mouth with magical attacks since it absorbed physical attacks. It wasted its turn again to just heal an eye who Yusuke killed, and then just a few more magical attacks finished off the mouth, ending the first phase of the fight. On phase 2, Madarame summons multiple copies of himself, with them being weak to their opposite element. So this phase is why I decided to attempt this fight on hard rather than merciless, but I actually managed to beat this whole phase without getting hit by Madarame whatsoever. I just repeated the strat of debuffing all of their defense with Joker, then used baton passes to down all of the clones and killed them all with Yusuke's massive strength with a vicious strike. So this was pretty easy. With the fight over, we learn of another metaverse user before leaving the palace. After a few minor interactions, we were free to continue advancing our confidants, like Arn and Yoshida. On the next day, Ryuji and Mishima seemed interested in a maid housekeeping service, so we call a maid over to a vacant apartment and identify the maid as Miss Kawakami, our homeroom teacher, who we help out the next day, and in return she tells us to call her at night, allowing us to start her confidant if I had the necessary guts of 3, which I didn't currently have. This confidant is a pretty good one to advance early on, since it gives you extra time in class to progress your social stats, and eventually allows you to explore at night after heading into the metaverse, which is why I was focusing on increasing my guts by taking the Big Bang Burger challenge and hanging out with Takemi during the day. On the 29th, I couldn't advance any confidants for now, so I decided to head into Mementos to complete the 2 available requests. The first was really easy, they literally didn't even attack me once, and Yusuke decimated them after a baton pass. We then met up with Jose, who powered up our Will Seed accessories that weren't really that useful. A little further in, I encountered the next request where I just knocked her down with Garo and negotiated with her, ending the battle without getting attacked. I then left Mementos, and since I had 3 guts now, I was now prioritizing upgrading my charm, as a confidant a little later on requires 3 charm to start. Anyway, now it was the 30th, and the day of the school cleanup event. On his way there, Joker notices a student named Yoshizawa had encountered slimy middle-aged man. With a intimidating shake of his head, Joker scares away the slimy middle-aged man, and after being thanked, leaves for the cleanup event. And once it ends, he meets back up with Yoshizawa, who jumps really high that really impresses Morgana, and she drops a student handbook, which we return, and she introduces herself as Kasumi Yoshizawa, a gymnast, later on starting the Faith Confidant. Once that was over, I had the guts to call Kawakami, starting the temporary Conference Confidant. On the next day, I reached rank 7 with Takemi, so I needed 4 Charm to advance further with her. I also reached rank 6 with Ryuji, so I had to wait a while for him to call me at night to continue that one. So during the day, I had less options for people to hang out with, so I was just spending some time with Maruki. And at night, I prioritized hanging out with Kawakami, and when she was busy, I talked with Mishima. And in no time at all, the 5th of June came around, and Madarame's art exhibit was over. He now held a conference where he confessed his crimes, and the change of heart was a success. After that ended, Ryuji invited us to go play darts down in Kichijoji, where Ryuji explained the rules, and after playing together, they both increased their baton pass rank. Then we get reminded about the social studies trip to a TV station, and later on we meet Yoshizawa and walk her to the train station, while she explains her goal is to get chosen to perform at the 2 huge gymnastics competitions at the start and end of summer. After saying goodbye to her, I was free to spend my time however I wish, with my priority for right now being to play darts to boost some teammates' baton pass rank. Then later on, I wanted to play billiards to unlock the ability to increase the team's technical rank. Once we reached June 9th, we headed off to the TV station where nothing interesting really happens, other than meeting Pleasant Boy, who introduces himself as Goro Akechi and says he'll be filming at the TV station tomorrow, so we'll see him then, which we do and later befriend, starting the Justice Confidant. On the next day, we encounter Makoto, the student council president, and she suspects our team is hiding something. After being pretty unnecessarily mean in response, we learn that Yusuke currently has no home, so we take him back to LeBlanc, introduce everyone to Sojiro, and cook a hot pot and explain to everyone who the hell is Drunk Man. After a night's sleep, Yusuke decides to leave the real Sayuri at LeBlanc, and is happy enough to return to the student dorms, so he's no longer homeless. Now we had a day of free time where I played darts again and listened to Yoshida. During class, Kawakami informs Joker to head to the student council room, where Makoto was waiting. Once there, she revealed that she caught Ryuji talking about being a phantom thief. In return for her keeping quiet, she asks us to change the heart of a mafia boss who has been threatening the students at Shugen. Before she left, she said she'd hand in all her information to the police in 2 weeks, setting a deadline for then. So on the day after, we investigated and found out from one student that the mafia has been blackmailing students that have completed their jobs of smuggling drugs in Central Street. With that information, we began to investigate around Central Street, but now we didn't find anything important, but with the current information we had, the squad decides that even without Makoto's suggestion, they wanted to change the Mafia's heart. Once that was over, I tried one of the challenge battles and got all the prizes. Then I started the Yusuke Confidant, and in the evening, Ryuji joined us to investigate Shinjuku, where we met a journalist at a bar where we traded information about the Phantom Thieves for the Mafia boss's name, Junya Kaneshiro, allowing us to enter his palace, where we found that his bank, where his treasure was stored, was flying far up in the sky, impossible to enter for now. Then tomorrow, Makoto, acting pretty recklessly, asked to be sent directly to Kaneshiro. We chased after her, but when we got there, she was restrained to the ground, and Kaneshiro took some incriminating pictures, asking us to pay him 3 million yen in 3 weeks or he'll leak the pictures, that we could 100% get by just grinding in mementos. Anyway, we now entered his palace, and since Makoto was seen as Kaneshiro's customer, we were allowed access to his bank. There we were told by his shadow to head into one of the rooms in the back where we were ambushed by a mini-boss. And since this enemy doesn't have a weakness, I decided to play on Merciless. I started the fight by firing off bullets with Joker to land a shock on both the enemy targets, allowing physical attacks to decimate them, and I killed the first group without them getting a turn to attack. The next group now showed up, and without Joker's gun attacks that ran out of ammo, I couldn't shock them this time. So I just decreased both of their defense, put one asleep with Arn, then killed that one with Yusuke, and baton passed to Arn to put the other one asleep so they couldn't attack, and then they died to a few more attacks. We were then forced to retreat, but before we left we got ambushed by Kaneshiro himself, who made Makoto super mad and she awakened to her persona, eventually starting a mini-boss fight against the enemies we ran from earlier. At first I used Makoto to down the center enemy and switched to Joker to down another enemy with a shot from his gun. Then I baton passed to Ryuji and got a little unlucky with Rampage, causing 2 enemies to survive and immediately kill me once they got a turn. On my next attempt, I did the exact same thing, but won the 50-50 and downed the 3rd shocked enemy, setting up an all-out attack that ended the fight. After breaking out of the bank, we recruited Makoto to the team, and now we're pretty much free to do whatever we want now. So I just picked up some protectors from EY and head to the hideout to begin the palace. this. At the start, I experienced the Showtime tutorial and found out that Arn and Morgana's Showtime actually changes the image in the stat screen. Then after getting completely owned by an Aerobus, I explored deeper inside the palace, having no trouble with the first mini-boss fight against 4 Aerobus, allowing me to head down the elevator and encounter the technical attack tutorial. A little deeper in was this powerful enemy guarding a will seed that I managed to beat by knocking them down and then baton passing to Yusuke to deal massive damage, making it possible to kill them before they attacked. With the first will seed in my possession, I could advance forward to this part where we used the monitoring room to split the mini-bosses up. So we just fought this guy, who spent their first turn buffing attack and died before they got a chance to attack again. Immediately after, I fought another easy mini-boss who I knocked down with Makoto and baton passed to Yusuke to deal 800 damage, allowing Arn to finish them off with ease. With that done, we advanced past this save where the music gets way worse and is otherwise mostly unnoteworthy, other than the will seed near the bottom. The next area held an easy mini-boss where you fight 2 of the mini-bosses you've already fought before and a new guy who's also pretty easy. For this one, I just knocked down the 2 easy bosses, then passed to Yusuke to wipe them out with a vicious strike. Then Yusuke landed a pretty lucky crit and an all-out attack was enough to end the fight from there. We now move on to the bad part of the palace where you're given journal notes to solve basic passwords, which isn't really difficult, it's just kind of annoying that I have to keep pausing the game to look in my inventory for like a minute. There's also only one new enemy here who's easy, so the regular battles play out pretty much the same as the previous parts of the palace, and are extremely easy. Even the next mini-boss was easy, I just inflicted them with forgetfulness so they didn't attack, and with a crit from Yusuke to deal most of the damage, they died before they got another turn. And similarly to that boss, the boss guarding the final will seed was fought with a pretty similar strategy of inflicting forgetfulness to stop them from attacking, then I lowered their defense and used Yusuke's ice skills to down them and followed up with a all-out attack. And when Joker's turn came around again, I downed them with his ice skills and passed a baton to Yusuke to land the killing blow. With the third will seed obtained, we picked up the Crystal of Gluttony, granting the skill Marukukaja for an AoE defense buff, extremely useful to not die against powerful bosses. Next up was another section where you gather nodes to solve the password at the end, and after that we reached a room with the treasure. So now if I wanted to progress, I had to leave and send the calling card. But first I did some grinding for some extra yen, as I wanted to start the Chihaya Confidant, which requires a hefty cost of 100,000 yen to start. Pretty much when I was low on SP, I returned to the entrance and got the tutorial on fusion alarms, and used one to make a slightly stronger regent for Yusuke, since the accessory's attack master had really helped me end mini-boss fights quickly. Then after leaving, I immediately decided to send the calling card the next day. We then entered the palace and ran straight for the treasure room where Shadow Kanashiro was waiting. He now explained his tragic villain backstory that I don't think anyone cares about. Then he goes Flyo mode and the battle begins, where he immediately enters Piggytron for Phase 1. For this fight, and for almost every major boss fight from this point onward, I decided to play on Merciless, significantly increasing the damage we would take. So right now, if I didn't want to immediately die, I had to buff up my team's defense and lower the enemy's attack. Piggytron now got a turn and dealt massive damage with Missile Party, and followed up with 3 single target attacks, killing Makoto and severely damaging Joker. So I had to revive her and use B-Chains to restore everyone to full HP. Piggytron fortunately followed up this destruction with a turn of charging up for a big attack that by defending dealt minimal damage, and on Piggytron's next turn they did this attack again, and I was prompted to drop a valuable item to stop the attack and gain a free turn to attack, dropping them to around 50% of their max HP, and transitioning to a slightly different phase where they now only attack once per turn, and they also gain this attack that can inflict your whole party with fear. That's pretty good when it happens, since it means they just didn't attack you on that turn. The most difficult part about this phase is the AoE attacks, but since Joker can survive both that and a follow-up attack, I just had to revive any party members that died to trivialize that phase of the fight. The only problem is I forgot to stock back up on revival items and AoE heals, so I couldn't last much longer once I defeated Piggytron and began to fight Kanashiro, where he immediately acts and kills Joker. So I returned to the previous day to buy more medical supplies, and now I was slightly more prepared, as when my entire party was significantly injured, I actually had the items to heal everyone back to full HP, making Piggytron for the most part pretty simple. And the main problem I had was actually the fight against Kanashiro, as once he leaves Piggytron, he acts immediately, and without an attack drop, the enemies really hurt, and most of my attempts that made it here just died due to Joker getting hit twice. Anyway, on my next couple of attempts, I learned that if Piggytron wants to, they can just kill your whole team by constantly spamming AoE attacks into AoE attacks. So I needed decent luck to knock down that phase. And the way I didn't die against Kanashiro's second phase is I simply got lucky enough to dodge an attack with Joker. During the entire second phase of the fight, I pretty much had my back against the wall. As if I got unlucky, I 100% just lost. The easiest way to not die was the intended strat of putting the enemies asleep to stop them from attacking, and to do massive damage with technicals. I also had to make sure Joker was close to full HP before the enemies acted, and his defense was up. Once the hitman died, it was significantly easier to survive, and shortly after, the bodyguard also died. Once Kanashiro used Make It Rain, he ran out of money, and also his HP once Makoto landed a Showtime finisher against him. Then before Kanashiro disappears, he mentions about a criminal using the metaverse. Then we leave the palace, Morgana uses up one of his 9 lives, and we head down to LeBlanc, where Makoto opens Kanashiro's treasure to find a fake currency, so it's not that valuable. Now we had 15 days to do whatever we wanted, and first I advanced the Strength Confidant to rank 5 by making a Sonata by fusing Lamia with a Silky to give it Rarukaja, and rank 5 of the Strength Confidant is particularly powerful as it allows you to fuse personas above your current level for a cost. Now this is pretty strong as it will allow me to use an overleveled persona that I can itemize into a protector to create armor significantly more powerful than what's intended. It will also allow me to gain access to more powerful abilities early on, so it's a really strong ability. Anyway, I spent most of my free time hanging out with Yusuke during the day and Kawakami at night. And on days I couldn't talk to them, I talked with Makoto, raised my technical rank, and at night talked with Oya and Yoshida for the extra charm. I also wanted to start the Chihaya Confidant, so I had to pay her 100,000 yen to get the Salt Stone. At the start of July, I had the proficiency to attempt the jump shot in billiards, increasing my technical rank to 3. Conveniently, just as I raised rank 8 with Kawakami to receive her Mementos request, I had talked to Chihaya 3 times to unlock her request that you need to beat to start her Confidant. So now it was a pretty good time to head into Mementos to progress their Confidants. The first request I fought was really weak and died to like 2 attacks from Yusuke. The next one was a Black Frost who I just shot with Joker's gun to get the shock and unleashed 2 all-out attacks to secure the kill. If you don't get the idea yet, for the next one I just shocked them with Joker and passed the baton to Yusuke who just destroyed them. The most difficult battle here was probably the fight against Mr. and Mrs. Takase, where I didn't remember their weaknesses. They didn't really deal much damage when my defense was up, but at least they survived long enough to get a couple of attacks in. Ultimately, they met their end to around 3 vicious strikes from Yusuke. Before I left Mementos, I used a fusion alarm to make a pretty good protector from a Tomly, granting both a significant defense boost and +7 magic. Then in the final 3 remaining days, I talked with Arn and Yusuke during the day, started Chihaya's Confidant at night, who has pretty good ability, so I really wanted to rank her up, and I also talked to Kawakami twice, maxing out her Confidant, unlocking her Special Massage. Then we reached the date of July 9th, where nothing in particular really happened other than like Akechi getting angry. We now had a night to spend with whoever we wanted, so I now decided to start the Hifumi Confidant. The party now studies for the end of term exams starting on the 13th, but before we had those we met up with Akechi and Yoshizawa, who tells us she qualified to be her club's representative for the big summer gymnastics competition. So the 3 head over to a cafe to celebrate, and after saying goodbye we had 2 days to do some confidants. Now after that we had the exams, and once they ended we overheard some students criticize Yoshizawa. Maruki then talks to us about Yoshizawa and expresses how he wishes that a similar method to the change of heart could be used to mend people who are suffering. Then at night we get contacted by Ryuji to head off to a summer festival, where after getting interviewed by a camera crew, we decided to check out a stadium that was under construction, where we found a sad Yoshizawa, who later explains that she significantly underperformed at her gymnastics competition, and after bringing up her main motivation, her dead younger sister, we decided to leave and head to another summer festival on the next day, where we just got interrupted by rain. So we head back to LeBlanc, where we overheard from the TV that a big hacking group called Medjed does not approve of the Phantom Thieves' actions. Then later on we get contacted by someone named Alibaba, who both has found out we're a Phantom Thief and wants us to change someone's heart in exchange for them exposing useful information about Medjed. On the next day we got contacted by Alibaba again, who we tell we need a name to perform a change of heart, and they reveal their target's name with Futaba Sakura, which didn't end up being descriptive enough, but the party recognizes that the target's last name was the same as Sojiro's. So we ask him about her, and it makes him angry, confirming she exists. So we investigated around Yogen on the next day and learned nothing. Conveniently at night, we catch Sojiro being threatened by the prosecutor Sai Nijima. After Sojiro agrees to tell her something, he tells us we shouldn't get involved and leaves. Tomorrow, Alibaba contacts us again and ultimately decides to call off our deal, as they didn't seem happy about a change of heart needing direct contact. Anyway, we now eat sushi, and after leaving, run into Akechi, who tells us Medjed's website was just updated. Then before he leaves, he says he's now on the investigation team looking into the Phantom Thieves, and he thinks our group is quite suspicious. The team now checks out Medjed's website to find out that they want the Phantom Thieves to reveal their identities, or they'll just attack Japan. Since this seemed serious, the group decided that Alibaba was their only means to beat Medjed, so they looked into Futaba Sakura by entering Sojiro's house, where Futaba jump-scared us, and then Sojiro showed up. After speech-checking him, he decides to tell us everything about Futaba at LeBlanc, including about her mother who committed suicide and her hallucinations about said dead mother. After confirming she had a palace, we ran over to Sojiro's to talk to her, revealing her final keyword, allowing us to enter her palace of a giant desert. That in the distance we saw a pyramid and used Mona to drive us over there. Inside we found Futaba's shadow, and from her we find out she feels responsible for her mother's death. After triggering a Crash Bandicoot chase segment with these goofy looking run animations, we left the palace and found out from Medjed that they plan to attack Japan on the 21st of August, setting a deadline for around 4 weeks. So I ran over to the clinic to pick up an SP adhesive free from Takemi to make SP a non-issue for palace exploration. Then I immediately entered the palace. At first I ran into the pyramid, but a door blocked the way to progress deeper inside, and just as I was about to leave, Shadow Futaba appeared and told us to pick up an item from a bandit in a nearby town. At first we had to corner, and then a battle began. I started it off by utilizing the Ring of Gluttony to boost my whole team's defense, and with its passive effect, Makoto repelled the boss's Garudine. Once Joker got a turn, the boss was as good as done, as I used his gun and landed a shock into an all-out attack. Then Makoto just had to land a technical knockdown and baton pass to Yusuke, who had more than enough firepower to take them down. So I now ran back to Futaba, who dropped us in a Mario Party minigame. After climbing out of that room, we entered a room with a strong enemy of Anubis, who is pretty easy. I just had to shock them and baton pass to Yusuke and killed them in 2 attacks. I then returned to the surface and quickly itemized another Tom Lee for an upgrade on Yusuke. We now encountered the first mini-boss, who was pretty easy. At first, I knocked them down with Joker, debuffed their defense, then Makoto got turned into a mouse, Yusuke attacked, and Arn lowered their attack. Joker now downed them and passed to Yusuke, who almost killed them, and they didn't attack again from there, so I easily ended the fight with an all-out attack. Next up was this room where you just shoot a ballista to break this wall to open this door, and through that door was a room where you have to collect these green materia to redirect this energy beam in the next room to open a way forward. The following room was another section where you gather a green orb, press a button to stop the traps, then you progress further in where you place the orb down here. That allows you to shoot a ballista that lets you progress to find the first will seed, and leads to the first of these mural puzzles, where you have to make the correct image, and it depicts the cause of Futaba's suffering. For this one, it was Wakaba's suicide note. I now entered the Velvet Room again and fused a Hellbiker and Arahabaki, 2 personas that I could itemize into protectors, and I did that during the next couple of fusion alarms. Anyway, a little further into the palace, there was another pretty unnoteworthy puzzle, and after solving that, I picked up the second will seed. So I now followed the giant boulders to another one of these picture rooms, opening the way to this room. That's pretty similar to the previous rooms, where you find the green orbs, place them down to progress further, and then encounter a mini-boss. And yeah, it's the same guy from the last mini-boss, and guess what? He again just didn't even attack me, so it was a free win. From here, it was a straightforward path to the next room where you use the grappling hook to navigate the room and eventually knock this down, allowing you to reach the mini-boss guarding the third will seed. As usual, I started the fight off by buffing defense, and then the dumb idiot used Bufudine on Makoto, who repelled their first attack with the help of her accessory. And then I realized that they repel physical, which was pretty bad since Yusuke has been one of my main sources of damage, so now I had to rely more on Arn, who hit their weakness for decent damage. After Joker attacked twice, they used triple down to kill Yusuke and set up a concentrate. That didn't do anything, as Joker could just kill them now, securing us the final will seed along with the path to the final mural puzzle, depicting a young Futaba asking to go somewhere only to get denied by her mother. Anyway, past the now open door was another door that we had to leave the palace to get past, but for the 4th time in this run, I didn't immediately leave the palace as I wanted to trigger a fusion alarm so I could give Makoto a defense upgrade. Then I failed a challenge battle for like half an hour and finally left the palace. After talking with Chihaya, I immediately decided to send the calling card, so we head off to Sojiro's house. Futaba opened the door and then the other door, allowing us to then enter her palace. This time we actually had a small segment we had to do before reaching the palace boss that was mostly easy. The high alert level just meant I had to be a little more careful to get ambushes. Once I reached the end, the perspective changed to Futaba, who now had the metanav on her phone and proceeded to enter her own palace. The perspective now shifts again and we now encounter Shadow Wakaba, and after an appearance from a wacky little number, the fight begins. I started the fight by buffing evasion, and then Wakaba proceeded to slam dunk on my whole team, killing everyone except Joker, who dodged with Yusuke's Persona's passive. He now revived Makoto, and while Wakaba ascended, I revived everyone else and healed them to full and defended with Joker. Wakaba now dived and killed everyone not named Joker, and slammed Joker twice, who just dodged. After some dialogue, the perspective now shifted to Futaba, who gets told by her shadow to remember the truth of what really happened when she was younger. Then she reaches the top of the pyramid and realizes that Wakaba's suicide note was a fake, and was used to place blame on her. She now awakens to her persona, and the fight against Wakaba begins again. At first, I sent Yusuke to shoot the ballista, and buffed up my defensive stats on everyone and lowered Wakaba's attack. Wakaba now attacked, and thanks to Futaba, we repelled it, so this fight should be really easy. I now buffed everyone's attack and lowered Wakaba's defense. She now actually attacked with a wing blast, and followed up with a slam, which we survived and shot her down with a ballista. I now had 2 turns where I was supposed to attack her, but instead I just buffed up my stats, which was bad as it caused me to fall behind on damage. And after this repel right here, Futaba will no longer assist us. And that was a problem as Wakaba spammed us with strong AoE attacks, and without Futaba's repels, I was taking serious damage every turn, and I just couldn't recover from all the attacks at once, and it was really hard to have a turn where I could actually attack. This eventually resulted in Joker dying and me having to restart. The change I made on attempt 2 is I made sure to let loose a bunch of physical attacks once I knocked Wakaba down, since she takes significantly more damage from them. I still couldn't kill her before Futaba's final repel, and once she started to use her AoE attacks, everyone started to die again. Fortunately, Joker got lucky with some dodges thanks to his dodge physical skill, and eventually he got lucky enough to trigger counter just as he was about to die, that actually managed to set up for the final blow with his gun. Futaba now left the palace and it began to collapse, so we drove out with Morgana. After leaving, we now check on Futaba, who was now in a deep sleep, and Sojiro says she'll be like that for a while. So now we had like 3 weeks to do some confidants, and right now I picked up a pretty good ability with rank 4 Faith, powering up ambushes in palaces. And more importantly, rank 5 with Chihaya, unlocking the affinity reading, allowing you to boost affinity with any confidant of your choice without having to waste time talking with them, allowing you to pretty much always have an option to rank up, so it saves you a good chunk of time across a whole playthrough. I was also lucky enough that Ryuji contacted me at night, so I could advance him to rank 7 and progress his confidant as normal now. The next day, I watched Yoshizawa play baseball, maxing out her confidants and triggering cryptic dialogue uniquely voiced by Yoshizawa herself. Now, I didn't really have any specific priorities for daytime confidants, and at night I made sure to reach rank 4 with Akechi to unlock the jazz club to use later on. I now prioritized talking with Yoshida and Oya to boost my charm to continue to Kemi's confidants, and when they weren't available, I talked with Hifumi to unlock the bookstore, that if you read all the books there, you get a book that offers more options for technical hits. Once I reached rank 4 charm, I talked with Takemi to pick up her request, and I now decided to prioritize upgrading Chihaya so I could hopefully do her request and Takemi's at the same time. Around this time, I had 4 guards, so it was a good time to start EY's confidants. Finally, I maxed out Yusuke's confidant, triggering his second persona Awakening, which isn't really that good since his persona affinity didn't change. And Evade Fire is much less useful since it only helps him avoid one of his weaknesses. The same was true for Ryuji, who conveniently triggered his second Persona Awakening on the day after. For a couple of days I now worked to eventually learn some names for some requests, so now I was ready to head back into Mementos. The first request I thought wasn't susceptible to shock, but they didn't attack me at first, giving Arn an opportunity to land a burn, and since they didn't attack me again, I landed a technical with Makoto to knock them down, and from there, it's curtains. Okay, the next boss is a real tough one, and the one after that did mediocre damage on their first flash bomb and died before they could attack again. After running into Jose and picking up some items for itemization, I ran into this guy, who actually has a good amount of HP and counter, so physical attacks are risky. So I buffed up my defense, lowered his attack, and now, yeah, he wasn't really a problem. With a showtime, our final request for now met their end, so I teleported to the entrance, picked up a dark jacket from a fusion alarm, and returned to the real world, where now I was able to further Mishima and Takemi's confidants. Then on the next day, I maxed out Arn's, unlocking her second awakening, so now Takemi and Makoto are the only daytime confidants I haven't maxed out, and Makoto needed 5 charms to be continued, so it was really just Takemi. Still, there were objectives I could accomplish during the day, like working out at the gym, so I was now making sure to pick up moist protein during rainy days to improve training proficiency. After using Chihiya's luck rating to boost Yoshida's confidant's charm gain, the date of the 21st of August came around. Futaba still hadn't woke up yet, so we talked with Sojiro about Wakaba. After saying how her research may have been why she was killed, Futaba shows up, who we reminded about Medjed, causing us to head over to her room, where she begins to get to work, while we cleaned up her room. Once she was done with that, she fell back asleep again, and we proceeded to meet up with everyone on the next day. As a result of Futaba's actions, we hear on the TV that Medjed has cancelled their plans, and afterwards old man Sojiro gets mad at the TV. We now ask Futaba to join the Phantom Thieves, and she accepts. However, she seems difficult to communicate with, so we spent the next couple of days spending time with her. On day 1, we find out Yusuke's a Dragon Ball fan. On day 2, we find out Ryuji has no Riz. On day 3, Futaba serves coffee to this creep. On the 4th day, Futaba touches Morgana's cheeks, and we decided to head to the beach at the end of the week. On day 5, we eat food, and on day 6, we talk with Akechi, who opens up about his past. Then at night, we messed around with some fireworks, and that led into the day where we went to the beach. Where Ryuji real-life awugas, we perform a sneak attack on this woman, and Yusuke finds some lobsters. Later on, Futaba reminisces about her mother, eventually leading the topic to her research relating to palaces, forcing Futaba to join the team for real to figure out why her mother was killed. At night, we were then contacted by Ryuji, who wanted to meet up tomorrow, so we do that and learn from Makoto that Yoshizawa underperformed again at the second summer meet. After the team dispersed, I talked with Mishima, and on the next day, Sojiro took us out to eat sushi. Futaba now wants our help to buy something in Akihabara, so we meet her there, where she's panicking, forcing her to request our help, starting the Hermit Confidant. Once September started, we headed off back to school and learnt of the school trip to Hawaii in a few days. Then later, we decided to give Makoto a device that's able to extract data that we want to use on Sai's laptop to find out more information on the mental shutdown cases. Also, check out Girl with Watering Can. Makoto now executes the plan, and Futaba extracts some information now, but says she'll need more time to unpack all the data, so we had to wait until after the Hawaii trip. But before the trip, I decided to head into Mementos, since I had the cheetah in the arcade request that I had to find to start the Tower Confidant. The first guy I fought attacked once that Yusuke dodged, then they healed and died before they could deal damage again. The next guy used almighty attacks which don't hit my weaknesses, so they dealt literally no damage, making it an easy win. Shadow Jochi dealt some decent damage, but I was saved with Arn and Yusuke's Endure. With the usual buffs and debuffs, I had no trouble cleaning up from there. Our fourth encounter just tried to brainwash, but only landed it on Arn, who I could cure. Then I downed them with Joker and switched to Yusuke, who ended the battle with a showtime. I now found the cheetah from the arcade, who I couldn't hit, so I retreated and then finished up the remaining Mementos floors, concluding with me leaving Mementos After receiving Kawakami's massage, I ran off to the jazz club since today they were serving a drink that gave the skill Charge. That allows you to charge to increase your next physical attack by 2.5 times. That I wanted to get on Yusuke since he doesn't get it by leveling up. Anyway, I now talk to the King, and after verifying our contact with the Phantom Thieves, he taught us how to use the downshot to beat the cheetah in Mementos, additionally starting the Tower Confidant. On the day after, I maxed out Takemi's Confidant. Then on Wednesday, we headed off to the airport to go to Hawaii, where after watching a man speak perfect Japanese, nothing really happened. Until the next day, where we learned that Yusuke's here for some reason. After a Phantom Thief ego check, we encountered this new character, Well-Behaved Girl. Mishima later tells us that on the fan polls for the next Phantom Thief target, the president of Okumura Foods is rapidly on the rise. After falling asleep, we now had to pick a choice for the Hawaii date. Our options were Makoto, who will give us an accessory that grants the skill Divine Grace, that powers up healing magic by 50%, or Hifumi, who will gift us an accessory that grants Evade Curse. I decided to go with Hifumi since we'll eventually get healing magic that full heals, so Divine Grace didn't seem that good. But from pure speculation and no testing, Divine Grace may increase Futaba's healing, which might make it her best accessory. So Makoto might have been better, if it actually helps Futaba. And if you know if Divine Grace improves Futaba's healing, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, we now change the perspective to Futaba, who meets up with Maruki, who had a book on cognitive science that interests her, so they talk about it for a while. The perspective now shifts back to Joker, who now visits a gift shop to pick up a souvenir. We then get jump scared by Yoshizawa for her first interaction with the entire party. She now says she's here for her club's training, and then talks about a routine of hers of buying a good luck charm before a meet. We then left the gift shop and returned to Japan, where this silly looking guy just dies. We now return to LeBlanc, where Futaba informs us she's done with analyzing size data, so after exchanging some photos, we discussed our findings on the next day, showing that the incidents seem to line up that they benefit Okumura, who was the same guy at the top of the polls on the Phantom Thieves website. So we consider him for our next target, but for some reason this angers Morgana, who says he'll go make his own Phantom Thieves of just himself, so he just dies and has to be saved by girl with watering can, without the watering can. On TV, we hear about some damages to a building owned by Okumura, and we suspect it was caused by Morgana's escapade. After figuring out Joker is completely useless without his cat, we head off to the building to investigate the palace, where we learn Okumura's employees are being exploited, and also run into Mona and the black-masked beauty thief, who explains they'll take the treasure before us, then insults us, and showed they're capable of opening this door that we couldn't get past right now. After returning to the real world, we identified that the beauty thief seemed familiar, so we checked pictures of all Shujin students the next day and identified her as Haru Okumura, who we meet before leaving, and after revealing her motivation for being a Phantom Thief, we try to recruit to the team, but she just declines. And then we sit in Mementos and wait for Morgana to appear to apologize to him, but that fails and we chase him around, but he gets away. To this back alley where him and Haru meet Haru's fiancé, a well-dressed man, who kills Morgana and grabs Haru. So we somehow find her and rescue her, and then head down to LeBlanc, where Morgana says he left because he feels like he's a burden, so we reassure him he's not. We're lying. Haru now expresses how she doesn't want to get married to her fiancé, and she and Morgana joins the team. On the next day, we learn that Haru will be accepted into her fiancé's household to expand Okumura's business, setting a deadline for the 10th of October in around 3 weeks. Before heading into the palace, I talked with Oda and Oya, with Oda being a pretty good confidant when you max him out, as it makes shotguns even stronger on Joker. And he also boosts kindness that I needed to max out to continue Sojiro's confidant. Now I entered Okumura's palace, having a pretty easy time in the first couple of rooms, since you fight this guy who's just weak to physical. Once we opened the door from earlier, thanks to Haru, we encountered Shadow Okumura along with her fiancé, where Okumura basically says he doesn't really care about Haru, causing her to become angry and fully awaken to her persona. persona, starting a mini-boss fight, where I used Masayo to down Haru's fiancé, and baton passed to Joker to kill the other enemies, allowing for an all-out attack to drop the boss to around 50% of his max HP. Just enough that after Joker downed them with a Psy attack, Yusuke could finish them off with a Rising Slash. After Haru decided her codename of Noir, we progressed to the next room, where there wasn't anything important other than the will seed you need to use the grappling hook to access, and the regular encounters are easy too. At the end of the room, we rode down an elevator to a section with multiple mini-bosses, where you progressively beat harder and harder ones to gain key cards to progress further. You can also talk them into giving you the weakness of the next mini-boss, like this one told me the next guy's weak to wind. This first fight played out pretty much how you'd expect. I downed them with Makoto and Joker, then tried to secure the kill before they could attack, but it turns out they have Endure for some reason. Fortunately, they didn't deal much damage, and they used their one more to kill themselves on Makoto. On my way to the next mini-boss, I got caught by the strong enemy, forcing me to engage them without an ambush advantage. This particular strong enemy is like ridiculously powerful, as they have over 1500 HP, are immune to physical, and are only weak to bless attacks that only Joker has access to, making them really hard to kill, and they have access to Mudun to instantly kill party members. That has an increased chance to hit in this run. I somehow managed to beat them by getting lucky with a showtime, and was rewarded with basically nothing. The next mini-boss told us the next guy was weak to Psy attacks, and I began the fight by buffing defense. They then attacked for not much damage, and Arn finished off one of them with a showtime. After taking very minor damage, Joker recovered and used Garula to down the main guy, and passed to Arn, who used fire attacks to clear out the weaker guys, who then got resummoned, and with an Arn attack into a Joker attack, we finished the fight with an all-out attack. The next boss was by far the easiest. I just used fire attacks with Joker, then baton passed to Arn to try to kill them, but that didn't work. But they chose to heal rather than attack, so I just downed them again and used Haru this time to set up an all-out attack that combined with a Sayo was enough to kill them all, allowing us to progress further to a room that's really awesome because it has the silly little guy Mothman in it. After adding a indispensable ally to our team, we now entered a room filled with these mechanical arms that we can break to proceed onwards, and off to the side there was the second will seed. This next room contains these terminals that you have to activate to stop these platforms from moving, allowing you to progress onward to another room that's pretty much the same as the last room, and it concludes in a fight against a bunch of these worker robots, where I just used 2 Mabufulas with Yusuke to kill the first wave, and on the second and third waves, I used a free spray to pass to Yusuke with Makoto, who could use Mabufula into an all-out attack to end the fight. By following the path forward, we reach the next major area where you traverse these space sections and press switches to change which ones are open. And after running around in a circle, I figured out the solution to head towards the final will seed, who was guarded by an easy boss, who after I debuffed, I got some damage in, and they dealt high damage with a God's Hand and followed up with a Makarakan that I used Yusuke to break, then downed with Joker, and ended the battle with Rising Slash. In this next room, they had a new gimmick where after you pass through these airlocks, some activate and others deactivate, which is pretty simple, and after that, we reached the treasure room. Before I left the palace, I had to do some fusions to make sure I had a powerful Psy and Curse persona, with Pale Rider for Curse as they had both Aegon and Boost Curse, and Okuniyushi for Psy. I also had various other personas to help against the next palace boss, since you need good damage to beat this next one. To further boost my damage, I also bought Psy amplifying accessories and equipped them on Joker and Haru. To finish up my preparations, I changed Joker to the Fairy's Hero Armor for the +7 magic to further amplify my damage. Now with my prep complete, I sent the calling card, entered his palace, and reached the room with the treasure, where Okumura says he's going to destroy the whole spaceport to kill us before he leaves, taking the treasure with him, so we had 10 minutes to chase him down, which isn't a problem. I even got stuck fighting some enemies for like 3 minutes, and I still made it to Okumura with 6 minutes on the clock, where he surrenders and acts as if he's had a sudden change of heart, which was just an act to trap everyone. After Morgana says some things that are poorly lip-synced, he shot Okumura's switch, freeing the team and beginning the boss fight with 30 minutes on the clock that I'm doing on hard rather than merciless because you can hit weaknesses, so merciless is normally the easiest difficulty for this fight. For the first wave, I buffed attack with Joker, then hit their weakness with Arn and passed the Joker to take them all out. For wave 2, Joker used a 1 more to deal mediocre damage with a Miragion, then I buffed defense with Makoto. Haru then hit their weakness with Masayo and passed the Joker, who decimated them. Then the next wave were immediately killed by 2 of Joker's nuclear attacks. Wave 4 was a little tougher as I had to use an item to hit their weakness and pass the Joker, who still didn't defeat them all in 3 attacks, so they attacked Makoto, who thanks to her accessory repelled the attack, letting me kill them after buffing attack again. The next wave is the hardest wave that has a pretty steep damage check if you're unprepared, especially since Okumura can lower Joker's attack by making him hungry and also buff one of the enemy's defense. So first, I removed the defense buff with Makoto, then cured Joker's hunger with Haru and used 2 Agons for damage. Passed to Haru for more damage, and finished the turn off by decreasing their attack, causing them to deal pretty awful damage that I immediately healed, allowing Joker and Haru to fire off side attacks, wiping out the entire wave, causing Okumura to call in the Executive Director, who is pretty much a traditional boss fight, so I now applied defense and attack buffs and debuffs that they dispelled after attacking Haru. We now reapplied the buffs and fired off some attacks. They then charged up for a big attack on the next turn that I had to guard to survive. Now I started to notice that the boss seemed to target Haru over everyone else with their Executive Punch. So predicting this, I used Tetrakarn to repel it back for solid damage. The only problem now were the boss's Big Bang challenges, that I just had to make sure I was buffed and they were debuffed in order to survive, which is actually harder than it sounds, as Okumura kept dispelling our buffs and lowering our defense, causing Haru to actually die. But with a revival item and bead chain, it was easy to recover from a loss, and with Joker's powerful Agons, we secured the kill on the Executive. Okumura then called in Robo Haru, who just barely deals double-digit damage. She then exploded for minimal damage, leaving just Okumura himself, who died to a shot of Joker's gun. After the battle, we asked him about the breakdowns and mental shutdowns that favored him, and learned that he knew a guy who did this for him. Before he could tell us who that person was, the palace began to collapse, so we had to leave, while Shadow Okumura is killed by a mysterious figure. After returning to Leblon, we had 19 days to do confidants, like Mishima, Futaba, and Oya, who I had now maxed out. Since summer break was now over, I could start advancing Maruki's confidants a little more, along with Makoto's confidant since I had max charm now. But my main priority during the day was ranking up either Shinya or Futaba. And at night, since I had maxed out most of them by now, I prioritized Sojiro and EY since they had the lowest confidant rank. Occasionally, I visited the Jazz Club on Friday nights and Sunday nights, as on Friday it gave the best stat buffs that I placed on Yusuke or Makoto, since Makoto is the best healer in the game and will pretty much always be on my team, and I gave the stats to Yusuke since I just like him and want him to be stronger. I also eventually visited the place on Sundays with Futaba 4 times to unlock her extra abilities, giving her access to the AoE debuff skills. While doing some confidants, we were contacted by Yoshizawa, who said she'd performed very well at the meet and thanks us for it. I ended up reaching rank 8 with Sojiro around this time, so we had to journey into Mementos with just Joker and Futaba to fight a request boss that potentially seemed difficult. I began the fight by firing off Agons for good damage, and dodged the incoming attacks with Crisis Control's Suzukasha buff along with Dodge Physical. When the buff lost its effect, Joker got hit, and Ishiki buffed his attack, so I scrambled around in the items menu and found Physical Ointments that repelled the Shadow's upcoming attack, instantly ending the fight, and because using these items felt a little strong, I decided to employ a new rule, that in solo fights with just Joker, I'm not allowed to use Tetrakarn or Makarakarn, as they're usually very predictable and spamming these Karn effects can make the fights way easier. Anyway, after a couple days passed, I managed to max out Yoshida's confidant. Then we shift perspectives and see that Yoshizawa, despite performing well at a respectable 3rd place in the meet, is pressured by middle-aged teacher into revoking her honor student status if she doesn't perform better in the next competition. She is then defended by Maruki, saying the stress and pressure isn't going to help her. After she leaves the meeting, we run into her and notice she dropped her charm that she picked up in Hawaii. To find it, she returns to the room from before and overhears the teachers insult her. Later on, we contact her about the charm and she says to meet her at Odaiba. That when we arrive, we suddenly enter a mysterious palace without using the nav. With Yoshizawa nowhere to be seen, we had to enter inside to find her. After jumping around and using the grappling hook, we rode down on the safest slide ever conceived and found Yoshizawa, who had met up with girl in leotard who died to monstrous entity. Now, various voices insult her, causing her to have enough, causing her to awaken to her persona in a magical girl transformation sequence, starting a battle where she uses her blessed skills to down them into an all-out attack. I repeated this with Joker and was attacked once by an Archidine into being watched. We then used Yoshizawa to down them into an all-out attack, and with a blessed attack, Joker finished them off. After the fight, we leave the palace, tell Yoshizawa what just happened, and ask her to join the Phantom Thieves, which she declines and ends the conversation saying she'll do her best to improve from this day onward. Now it was business as usual, and my next maxed out confidant was Maruki. Sort of, as you can only get rank 9 with him for now, and you max him out when he leaves Shujin in November. The next noteworthy confidant rank I reached was rank 8 with Shinya to pick up his request, and then we reached October 11th, the deadline for Okumura's palace. On the day, we ended up eating lunch with Maruki and Yoshizawa, who seems to be doing much better thanks to our encounter in the mysterious palace that Maruki comments on. The party now meets up on the school rooftop to help Haru with her plants, then later on decide to hold a celebration party at Destinyland, where they watched Okumura's confession, but before he reveals who caused the mental shutdowns, he just dies. Completely shocking the team, the perspective now shifts to Sai and Akechi, where Akechi seems to suspect that the Phantom Thieves are behind Okumura's mental shutdown, insisting another party is involved. Sai now investigates Haru's place, and later on the other members of the Phantom Thieves seem shocked that they're being blamed for Okumura's death, later on suggesting that they were set up by the true culprit. Considering the police seemed determined to catch them, they decided to lay low for a few days until the midterms were over. So I now had some time to spend, and with my proficiency, maxing out my technical rank seemed like a good move, considering it now guarantees a knockdown on technicals. Other than picking up Hifumi's request, nothing important happened until the third day of the exams, where something awesome happens. Following the exams, we talked with Haru, subsequently leading into everyone gathering at LeBlanc, where Futaba relayed some information suggesting that the Medjed we encountered during summer wasn't the real Medjed, and the same guys also seem to have tampered with the polls on the Phantom Thieves website to set up Okumura as their target last month. On the 21st, we got interrogated by the police, later on deciding to stay on the defense, and not cause a commotion while we figure out the true culprit. To blend in, we ended up tallying votes for the guest of honor at the school festival, who ended up being Goro Akechi, with their plan on the following day being to extract as much information from him as possible while he's at Shujin. Then a day later, we actually meet him at LeBlanc, where he firsthand seems to believe that the Phantom Thieves aren't criminals. Before leaving, he says he's accepted the invite to the panel at Shujin, which occurred in 2 days, and before it started, I maxed out Mishima's confidant, unlocking a pretty nice passive ensuring the whole team will be appropriately leveled. At the festival, we ended up eating takoyaki and were interrupted by Akechi, who was here to check the place out. After he left, the team decided to disband, with Yusuke talking to Maruki about his troubles while he had the chance. Tomorrow, Akechi attended the panel and during the panel seemed quite confident on who the Phantom Thieves are. Makoto then encouraged him to share who he thinks they are, but before disclosing that, he gets interrupted by a phone call and asks us to join him in the PE faculty office, where he reveals he caught us heading into the metaverse, and he is confident we are the Phantom Thieves as he has the same powers we do. He then says he believes we didn't kill anyone and believes a black masked man is responsible, who almost killed him and caused him to awaken to his persona. After we tell him how the change of heart occurs, he tells us he believes the police will catch us at this rate if we don't strike a deal with him of helping him uncover the truth and disbanding the Phantom Thieves, or else he'll report us to the police. After a Fate of White, Akechi leaves Shujin. We now hear about a post-festival party that Yoshizawa invites us to go together, where the dance club shows up, so Joker does like a Fortnite dance, and Yoshizawa does a real dance that intimidates Morgana, so he hides in Joker's bag. After saying goodbye to her, I think we just time travel back like half an hour, because now the post-festival party is about to begin again, and this time we went there with Ryuji, where we confessed our love for him and picked up the Ryuji dog. Once we return to LeBlanc, we find out that Sojiro has discovered a calling card in Futaba's room, causing her to panic, but we later calm down the situation and tell him about Futaba's change of heart. He now makes the connection between Joker and multiple people who've had changes of heart, eventually causing Futaba to admit their Phantom Phantom Thieves, and explains her reason for joining was to investigate Wakaba's death. He now says to be careful and has no intention in handing us into the police, even with the 30 million bounty we learn about tomorrow. After discussing about the group setting the Phantom Thieves up to fail, we meet up with Akechi, who says his plan involves changing Sai's heart to prevent her reckless behavior and restore her sense of justice. Akechi now speaks about his motivations for why he does what he does, then suggests we should head into Sai's palace now, but Makoto refuses, so we'll leave it for the next day. After talking to Futaba about something, we meet Akechi outside the courthouse, where he tells us the police will investigate Shujin and the Sakura residence on the 20th, setting the deadline for then. Futaba now grabs his phone before we entered Sai's palace, the casino. We now run up some stairs to sneak inside, where after platforming we met Shadow Sai, who says we should follow her to the next floor and disappears. Unfortunately, since we didn't have a member's card, we couldn't activate the elevator for now, and were ambushed by Big Cat Guy over here. I began the fight by unleashing a Koga with Akechi and applied a defense buff. On their first attacking turn, they just got repelled by Makoto, and since they had a lot of resistances, they actually survived long enough to get another attack off, dealing okay damage. Makoto now killed them and told us we should leave for now. During the evening, I repaired the broken laptop so I could now access Tanaka's commodities, where I for now could only buy some elemental attack items that are nice to hit weaknesses and baton pass. Then after sleeping, we were shown we have 21 days until the investigation. Before heading back into the palace, I progressed Futaba's Confidant and unlocked her final ability from the Jazz Club. I also started the Empress Confidant with Haru and maxed out Sojiro that night. Additionally, I maxed out Shihaya's Confidant and realized that Haru's Confidant is actually a pretty good one, as you can for free just get some items that let you charge and concentrate an ally, which is really good when used on Joker when he gets more optimized personas. To prepare for Sai's palace, I used a fusion alarm to itemize Okuniyushi for a very strong protector. Then I asked EY to modify Akechi's gun to inflict shock, which was immediately useful once I entered Sai's palace. The first noteworthy fight here is against these two queen mobs that block this door, who I ended up just shocking with Joker's gun, allowing us to use technicals to down them and unleash all-out attack into all-out attack, and then the battle was over. We followed up this by picking up the first Will Seed, and next there was a fight against Ganesha that started with Bullet Hail activating, dealing around 50% of their max HP immediately. Then a lucky freeze into a Megaton raid allowed for an all-out attack to clean up from there. After picking up the membership card, we could now return to the elevator and head to the members floor, where we meet Sai again, who says we're not qualified to fight her yet and says go win more, which we try in the dice room to the left, but fail and suspect that it's rigged. So we enter a vent to find a way to catch them in the act. On my way there, I fought the strong enemy of Skadi, who after being shocked by Joker took over 1000 damage from Yusuke and died to Makoto, so they're real easy. Once we reached a room in the back, we ambushed a mini-boss with a Bullet Hail, then hit their weakness with Akechi, allowing Yusuke to dispatch them with a Showtime. After the battle, Akechi suggests we now rig the game in our favor, allowing us to win every time, earning winnings of 6,500 coins of the 50,000 we need. In the room to the right was a mini-boss fight against an enemy I could just shock and decimate with Yusuke. This next area was pretty uninteresting apart from the Will Seed. Eventually this area led to the room with the big slot machine that we find is rigged, that to rig in our favor we had to access two terminals. Once we did that, we played slots, winning us the 50,000 coins we needed to access the next floor. But before reaching the elevator, we started a mini-boss fight where they immediately dealt heavy damage to both Akechi and Joker. So I buffed defense and used items to restore the team's health and cure Joker's shock, who attacked with Bufudyne, inflicting a freeze, letting Makoto land a technical to pass to Yusuke, who could end the fight. After the battle, we talked to Shadow Sai, whose attitude saddens Akechi. We now climbed up to the high limit floor where it was impossible to proceed for now, and we had to leave the palace. But first, I ran into the Velvet Room and finished up the Strength Confidant, making it cheaper to make higher level personas, and then I ranked up Akechi to rank 7. Akechi now led us into the courtroom where Sai was attending, allowing us to progress to the high limit floor. On that floor, we used a grappling hook to reach this area, with the third Will Seed guarded by a mini-boss, who I shocked with Joker, then passed to Yusuke, who attacked attacked with Deadly Fury, and followed up with a Showtime ending the battle. Allowing us to pick up a pretty mediocre accessory, we could now advance onward to find out we now needed 100,000 coins, so we had to enter a maze that only cost 1,000 coins. Then after traversing the maze, we ran into a mini-boss at the end. To start the fight, I buffed defense and charged. They then responded with a Maziodyne that was repelled by Makoto, and then they ended up shocking themselves. So I proceeded to let loose multiple technical attacks to quickly wipe them out. With 10,000 coins added to our possession, I could now enter the arena that Joker had to do alone. For the first battle, we faced two Ganeshas. First, I just tried to deal as much damage as possible with some Psy attacks. Then for the first one, I got lucky enough to activate Counter-Strike, but for the second, I wasn't so lucky, and they followed up with a Tempest Strike, dropping Joker to an uncomfortably low amount of HP. Fortunately, I could just use more Psy attacks to end the fight from here. On the second battle, we were faced with 3 Ranga, who, after checking my personas, I realized that if I wanted to hit their weakness, I had to use Norn, who didn't have Crisis Control to reduce damage. So I just used stun guns to down them and healed before they attacked. We now didn't take too much damage and killed 2 of them with Norn and healed to help in the next battle. After dodging, we dispatched the remaining Ranga and proceeded on to the final battle, where I just got lucky and activated counter on their charged Megaton raid, killing them instantly, giving us the 100,000 coins necessary to activate the bridge. But before we could spend the coins, so I changed the coins necessary to 1 million. That with an extra members card Kechi picked up, managed to outsmart the system into having an additional 910,000 coins, bringing our total to just over 1 million, enough to proceed onwards to the room with the treasure. Before I left, I spent like half an hour dying on a challenge battle. When I finished that, I fed Akechi some magic juice and met up with everyone to send the calling card. But Akechi expected the calling card would have no effect if we did it now, and suggests we leave it as late as possible to agitate Sai. So we now had until the 18th to spend doing confidants and other such tasks, like ranking up Akechi's baton pass rank that is slightly harder than the other party members, since you have to score 701 across 5 rounds, and play darts twice with him since you can't encourage him to increase the rank to max immediately. After that, I received EY's request along with Futaba's, which were the final 2 confidant requests, so I immediately ran into mementos to finish them up. The first request did no damage and literally got 1 shot. For the next guy, Yusuke charged, then Joker shocked the guy with his gun, then passed to Yusuke, who dealt over 6,000 damage. We did the exact same thing as the last guy for Togo, then we found this guy from before where you just have to use the down shot to end the fight with an all-out attack. For Kiritana, I froze him with Yusuke, skipping his first turn, allowing me to dish out almost lethal damage to Kiritana, allowing them to use Rebellion and just die. Request 5 was against 2 opponents where one used Lullaby, putting themselves asleep, allowing Akechi alone to take them out. After receiving 2 attacks from the other guy, we hit them 3 times to kill them. Now Shadow Odo took a little more effort to beat. At first she tried to put us asleep and failed, so I tried to freeze her and shock her to no avail. My other attacks weren't doing much damage either, so she got a turn again and comboed myriad strikes into Vorpal Blade to kill Akechi, who Yusuke revived. We attacked again, trying to find her weakness, but to no luck. Once she got a turn, she used Lullaby again, putting everyone asleep except for Joker, who broke out with Detox, who found her weakness, then woke up Makoto, who applied Tetrakan to Joker to keep him safe, while they used Vorpal Blade and Mudun, which we endured. After a showtime, Joker hit her weakness and passes to Yusuke to defeat them. Since that was our last request, I could now leave mementos and further advance EY, Shinya, and Futaba's confidants, along with Haru's. Around this time, I decided to start rank 8 with Akechi, where he asks us to follow him into Mementos, where he wants to take us on with everything he's got, since we won against his right hand in rank 7, so he challenged us to a duel. I began the battle by using Debilitate with Dionysus, a persona I've used specifically for this fight. During this battle, Akechi has a consistent attack pattern, where he starts by using Megaton Raid and follows up with a basic attack, then he uses Aegon into Mudun, and then uses Koga into Hamon. My plan for this fight was to pretty much keep him debilitated and use Zeodynes on turns I'm able. Eventually, he got low enough to trigger a phase 2 where he fires off Megidolas every 4 turns now. Now, I pretty much maintained my debuffs and used 3 turns to heal with beads if I was low. Additionally, since he dealt most of his damage on physical attacking turns, I opted to defend there to not take major damage, steadily chipping him down on his bless and curse turns until the fight ended. After leaving mementos, he asks Joker if he thinks he would lose if they fought again to the death, then confesses his feelings for Joker, says why he has these feelings, and says Joker is the one person he refuses to lose to. The interaction ends with him throwing his glove over to Joker, challenging him to a duel, saying he will be the one to defeat Joker, ending the Justice Confidants for now. Anyway, in my remaining few days, I maxed out EY's Confidant, read Knowing the Heart to unlock more technical options, finally ranked up Makoto and Haru's technical rank, and with almost every nighttime Confidant maxed, I spent a lot of time in the jazz club for extra stats. Eventually, Yoshizawa asked us to join her on the roof, where she just sort of says the public has turned on the Phantom Thieves, so why continue doing it? So we tell her we have something to finish before disbanding, and she responds by asking us to do some training on the next 2 days, that end up being on the date that we're sending the calling card, so we have to decline. After that, I just maxed out Futaba's Confidant, unlocking Final Guard, a nice ability that can protect an ally who's about to die. Pretty nice with the enemy's high damage output in this run. Now, the 18th came around, and the day Maruki was scheduled to leave, he now gave a speech during an assembly, then afterwards we met up with him to eat some deluxe tempura he bought for us. He now says he's completed his paper and reveals he knows we're a Phantom Thief because he caught us leaving a palace back in April. Maruki now establishes a link between the Phantom Thieves and his research on cognitive science. We now shake his hand and max out his Confidant. Before he leaves, he says one day he wishes to bring us happiness, even if we just consider it meddling. Once we leave school, we head back to LeBlanc and talk to everyone about how we should send the calling card. They decide to leave it to Makoto since she lives with Sai. After Akechi leaves, we talk about something twice. Then Sai finds the calling card and it's time to steal her heart. When we reached the treasure room, it wasn't there anymore, so we chased down Sai to a room further in, containing a giant roulette wheel, along with her, who begins the boss fight. Now, at first, this fight has a gimmick, where you play roulette to win and lose rewards shown on the big screen, and damage doesn't really matter here, so I just applied some buffs to my team, and waited for the prompt to send someone to catch her, rigging the roulette outcome in her favor, making her angry, transforming her into a normal boss fight that we can fight as normal now. At first, I debilitated her and buffed my team again, while she spun the roulette, with it landing on Bless, causing her to attack thrice, with the third attack being blocked with a counter-strike. Also, what's strange to me about this fight is Sai only gets 1 turn, unlike most palace bosses who get 2 turns. Which is a little strange, but it makes this fight way easier. We now recovered our HP and attacked with Joker and Akechi. She attacked again, but Yusuke dodged the second attack, and I had to reapply my debuffs and buffs again, that she dispelled on her 1 more turn. So I reapplied the defensive ones and just tried to get damage in with Joker and Akechi. She now changed her affinity to nuclear, which means she'll take more damage from Sai attacks now. So I used those on Joker and switched Akechi to using almighty attacks to bypass her resistances. Other than that, as usual, I healed if I took too much damage, and kept applying my buffs and debuffs. This plan changed once she spun the wheel again, and it landed on Almighty, forcing her to enter a berserk state, increasing her attack and lowering defense. She then fired off an extremely powerful Brutal Impact that we could only just survive thanks to Futaba's Final Guard, giving us an opportunity to attack with everyone, who immediately got heavily injured by a Gatling gun into a Megidola. So I had to revive Akechi and decided to go all in from here, and try to kill her before her next turn, but succeeded with a Freydyne from Makoto. After Makoto talked to Sai, we picked up the treasure, and was told a large number of shadows keep appearing. So to keep them distracted, Joker split up from the rest of the team. After he darted across the Mario platformer segment, we encountered the first encounter for this section. I just fired off 2 Bufudynes to end the battle, where Arsene suddenly appeared, telling us to recall everything. Once that was over, Joker stealthily made his way out the casino, where we were ambushed and saved by Yoshizawa in a completely scripted fight. Joker now tried to escape the casino, but he was ambushed and arrested, with the officer saying he was sold out. Joker now gets beat up by Man in Suit, and eventually this leads us into catching up to the present day, where we had to deny selling out our teammates and try to recall who betrayed us, that we had to show them our phone after remembering their voice. We now handed our phone to Sai and she left. She then ran into Akechi, who was here to interrogate Joker. Before he did that, Sai showed her Joker's phone, then he made his way to Joker's room and and stole the guard's gun and killed them. After a short cutscene, he shot Joker, killed him, and handed him the gun to fake a suicide. Sai now receives a message from Alibaba along with a voice clip from Akechi, causing her to return to Joker's room. Then we now see on the news that Joker has supposedly committed suicide, shocking the other Phantom Thieves. Igor now asks us why did we have to die, and then we get a few flashbacks. The first showed us suspicion for Akechi since he heard Morgana talk about pancakes back when we first met him, causing Morgana to ask Futaba if it's possible to bug his phone so they could listen on to a conversation. A cutscene now shows that Joker didn't actually die to Akechi, as Akechi only killed the cognitive Joker in Sai's palace, so the real one's okay. After another memory confirming Akechi is the culprit, we learn that Akechi is not the mastermind and there's someone else controlling him. The perspective now shifts back to LeBlanc, where Joker arrives there safely with the help of Sai. There, they pretty much just explain what happened, leading into them suspecting Shido is the mastermind, since he would benefit from the mental breakdowns, and Akechi said his name after cognitive Joker's murder, who Sojiro knows about as he believes he's responsible for Wakaba's death and stealing her research, leading to us deciding to change his heart. Afterwards, we talk with Futaba and she explains various details that are somewhat important. We then decide to head out to the Diet Building to enter Shido's palace, but for now we couldn't find out his keywords, so we had to listen to his speech in Yogen, allowing us to find the final one out and enter his palace. A giant boat that we entered and fought a mini-boss fight against Cerberus, who missed on their only attack opportunity, and Yusuke's ice skills dealt major damage, allowing for Makoto to finish them off. We now ascended our way to the next area, where there was a large door that we needed 5 keycards to get past, that after investigating we found out about 5 people that we needed to get letters of introduction from to allow us to open the big door. After deciding to leave the palace for the day, I failed this minigame. Tomorrow, Yoshizawa showed up at LeBlanc, realizing we're okay, then she explained that she followed us into Sai's palace and then asked to join the team to fight against Shido. But because it was too much effort to write her into the next 2 palaces, we're forced to decline and promised to not die. After she left, we had 23 days until our time limit, the election. Before entering Shido's palace, I decided to finish up some of my remaining confidants, with Shinya powering up Joker's gun, then Makoto and Haru to trigger their second persona awakenings. After using the Jazz Club for some minor stat boosts, I was finally ready to begin Shido's palace. By following this corridor, I reached this large room that was pretty unnoteworthy. All you have to do is pick up a membership card from an NPC, allowing you to enter the restaurant and encounter the first of the 5 guys we need letters of introduction from. That Makoto tried to make them say something incriminating to blackmail them into giving us the letter, which just made them angry, starting a mini-boss fight. That I just shocked with Joker, then charged with Yusuke, allowing Ryuji to hit a technical to pass to Yusuke, who destroyed them. With the first letter of introduction added to our possession, we rode the elevator up to this next area, where there are these Shido statues that turn everyone into mice that makes it impossible to fight the enemies or open doors, but it allows you to enter these small vents to progress further in, allowing you to deactivate or reactivate the statues. That eventually led into me encountering the first strong enemy with Kale, who thanks to Shinya's ultimate ability, I could bypass their gun immunity to shock them, bypassing their next turn, allowing Joker to pass to Yusuke, who now ended the fight with a showtime. Then after utilizing the grappling hook and sneaking through a vent, I found the first will seed, then proceeded on to the next area with a big swimming pool. Home to the second guy we need a letter of introduction from. That after some convincing by Arn, we picked up the letter and began a boss fight. At first, I debilitated them, then they responded by brainwashing Ryuji, so Yusuke cured that, allowing Ryuji to hit their weakness and pass to Yusuke for big damage. Now they just tried to brainwash us again, that Yusuke cured again, and charged, allowing the next Deadly Fury to kill them. The next area was another area with the mouse gimmick, and during this I found that the grappling hook ambush is much stronger once you unlock the extra technical options, since it allows guns to down confused enemies. After leaving that area, I immediately entered the Velvet Room and realized that you need to max out Morgana's Confidant to fuse Yoshitsune. So I just made Satan that you can itemize into the best protector for males. Now I just moved along the outside of the boat until this encounter. That I just needed to use a Blessed Magatama to hit their weakness and pass to Joker to land a technical, allowing Ryuji and Yusuke to clean up. Past that was a casino area that at the bottom of the room there was the third letter of introduction guy who told Haru why her father died, eventually causing a mini-boss fight to begin. Joker initially tried to land a shock on Hanuman, but that didn't work. Fortunately, they didn't attack, so Makoto could down one of them with a crit, pass to Joker to down the other, and finally pass to Yusuke for massive AoE damage. Yusuke now charged and Ryuji downed the bird guy. guy. Then he passed to Yusuke, who just missed. After Joker killed the bird guy, Hanuman missed, allowing me to figure out his weakness, allowing the next 2 attacks to end the fight, picking us up the 3rd letter of introduction. Also, we now see an internal monologue from Akechi that I personally find his first sentence here to be pretty funny. He now starts to piece together what happened during Joker's fake death. Anyway, we now explore the next area. It's pretty similar to the previous couple areas, but it was home to the second will seed. Along the outside of the boat, we had another encounter with one of these guys again that were easy. After a straightforward room, we rode the elevator up to a room from the start of the palace. From there, we journeyed back to the restaurant, where Makoto convinced a waiter to tell us where the IT president was. That to access, we had to go back to the outside of the boat and climb along the side. But first, I climbed up to this area that eventually led to a mini-boss guarding the final will seed. I began the fight by landing 2 shots with Joker's gun, allowing Yusuke to hit a technical and use the one more to pass to Ryuji, who killed one of the Dakinis. Then the unshocked Dakini attacked with sword dance for mediocre damage, and followed up by inflicting rage on Ryuji, who was cured by Yusuke that finished off Kali. The remaining Dakini missed on their next attack, so it was pretty easy to win now with a showtime. After picking up the accessory, I dropped down and platformed my way over to the IT president, who Futaba talks to, resulting in us just fighting them. For the battle, I just hit the enemy's weakness with Makoto and Joker, then passed to Yusuke to wipe out the weaker enemies that the boss resummoned. But Joker just downed them, then landed a shock on the boss, then Ryuji passed to Yusuke, who ended the fight with myriad strikes. We now got told to head to the engine room to find the final mini-boss, but first I prepared by heading into the Velvet Room to make this guy, who after triggering a fusion alarm, I itemized into the best protector for Makoto. They also had severe tier wind magic and amp to boost damage, so they were a pretty potent damage persona as well. So I switched Ryuji to using the Ring of Greed to give him President's Insight, that will allow him to use Concentrate on Joker. With my preparations complete, I entered through the vent to the engine room where we had another fight against these guys, who are still easy. A little further in, we climbed through another vent and dropped down to find the cleaner, that after Yusuke designed a tattoo for, we fought him. He started off by using my Aegon, followed up with an attack, then lowered Yusuke's defense. I responded by debuffing, buffing, and healing, causing them to deal much less damage now. I now tried to land a shock with Joker's gun and Ryuji's Zeodines, but I think they're immune to that. So they attacked again, this time with Mudun, that after missing, they buffed attack. Since shocking them wouldn't work, I decided to try for a crit with one-shot kill, which failed, but they just dealt low damage again. Joker now let loose another one-shot kill that Ryuji followed up on, resulting in an all-out attack to finish them off. After discussing about how to send the calling card, we were free to leave the boiler room if Akechi wasn't waiting nearby to ambush us, who after wishing him and Joker could have met earlier to become closer friends, we rank up his confidant to rank 9. He now says that Shido is his father, and his actions until now have been to exact revenge upon Shido. Then he has a big crazy evil speech that results in a battle that I'm doing on Merciless, where at first he says he has the power to turn people psychotic, then uses Call of Chaos to enter the nearby shadows into a berserk state, increasing their attack but lowering their defense. I started the fight by trying to crit Kukafulin, then I just buffed and downed Cerberus, and attempted to shock Kukafulin, that failed. They now attacked and completely destroyed us, with everyone barely surviving with Endure and Final Guard, except for Yusuke. Joker now used Diamond Dust for major damage on Cerberus, then he revived Yusuke. I now got lucky and Ryuji used a Showtime for major damage on Kukafulin, then Yusuke killed Cerberus and Makoto healed everyone to full. After Makoto dodged one final attack, Joker ended the first phase of the fight with Black Viper, forcing Akechi to step forward, and now we had to fight him. Before he attacked, we charged and buffed defense. Akechi then attacked Joker twice for lethal damage, but he survived thanks to Enduring Soul. Since Akechi primarily focuses on attacking Joker, I now defended with him to stay safe, while everyone else attacked. After taking minor damage, Joker used Debilitate on Akechi, causing him to actually miss his next attack. With his defense down, everyone attacked, dealing just enough damage to finish him off. We now try to talk him down, but that just makes him angry, and he says some really funny things. Then he remembers about his duel with Joker, and says he wants to go all out to win against Joker. He then changes his persona to Loki and tries to grab us, beginning a battle. Also, I thought this was pretty funny. Anyway, I started the fight with various debuffs and buffs, then he used Tetrakarn and missed. With Joker's gun, I broke the Tetrakarn, allowing myriad strikes to deal good damage. After we healed, Yusuke dodged negative pile, but Makoto was hit by Brave Blade, and Akechi buffed his attack on the one more turn. We then dealt major damage with a charged Megaton raid, and Yusuke charged to try to finish off Akechi on his next turn. Before that happened, Akechi used Makarakan into Aegon, then removed our buffs that Futaba just reapplied. I now set up for a hypothetical next turn. That didn't happen, as Yusuke just killed Akechi with a showtime. Once the battle ends, he says that he believes that if the Phantom Thieves succeed and Shido is taken down, his past fame will vanish. After we give him a couple compliments, we ask him to join the team again. To his shock, before he could respond, Cognitive Akechi appeared and aimed his gun at Akechi, and says that Shido was going to dispose of him after the elections. So his revenge plans would have failed. After he made some funny faces, he summoned some shadows that surrounded Akechi. Cognitive Akechi now commands Akechi to shoot, that after regretting his past mistakes, aims his gun at Joker, then just at the last second, aims towards Cognitive Akechi and shoots. Then follows up by shooting a button, moving a barrier to protect the Phantom Thieves, saying we couldn't win here with him bringing us down. He then gives us one final request: change Shido's heart and end his crimes. After reminding him about his dueling glove, Joker senses a solid bond between the two, and his confidence is now maxed out. With the sound of 2 gunshots ringing out across the engine room, Futaba said she couldn't sense Akechi anymore. Then with 5 letters of introduction, everyone headed back to the assembly room door that led to the room where Shido's treasure was held. Before leaving Shido's palace, I dropped this guy off to boost their stats, then left the palace, and used Karakami's massage to head off to the jazz club to boost Yusuke's stats. After Chuka thinks about his promise to his boyfriend, I picked up a few items from the clinic and decided it was time to send the calling card. That was sent in a rather different way this time, as they hacked into a live broadcast to expose Shido, making him sufficiently angry and causing his goons to investigate Sojiro and Sai. After most of the confidants said their word of encouragement, we entered his palace and ran straight for the assembly hall, where Shido was waiting, who says like he's chosen by God and how he wants to build a strong country. After a cutscene, he sits down on a lion made of people and the boss fight begins. With Debilitate, I lowered his stats, then Shido missed and removed like Yusuke's attack buff, so I used my defensive buffs, then concentrated Joker since on this phase Shido's immune to physical attacks. Then Joker fired off Black Viper for pretty bad damage. Anyway, Shido now repeated what he did on the last turn, so we buffed again and I used Diamond Dust for damage. Shido responded to this with Beast King's Wrath into a basic attack, then finished by removing our buffs. With Makoto knocked down, she recovered and used a Showtime. We then just healed and used defensive buffs and debuffs. After surviving another one of Shido's turns, we attacked him enough to move on to phase 2, where he's now resistant to magic but vulnerable to physical. So I charged up with Yusuke and Shido didn't do much damage. Now Ryuji charged and Shido tried his best to kill Joker. Yusuke and Ryuji now had a good opportunity to unleash powerful charged attacks, forcing Shido to transition to phase 3. That was the easiest phase as they use almighty attacks that Makoto dodged, allowing everyone to safely attack, landing the killing blow. After Joker takes off his mask, Shido takes off his shirt, and the boss fight continues. I began the fight by doing the usual, then he used Heat Riser, so Joker had to use Debilitate again, while Ryuji charged. Next, Shido attacked, but we were lucky and dodged. After charging, concentrating, and dishing out damage, Shido responded with an instant kill attack on Makoto, who endured, then followed up activating Final Guard. After using a charged Myriad Strikes, I had to heal, as immediately after Shido attacked again for low magic damage, but his big strong punches were dishing out massive damage, so I had to charge, heal, and buff defense. But he still killed Yusuke, so I had to revive him while Joker dropped Shido below 50%, triggering some dialogue along with a Heat Riser. By maintaining my buffs, debuffs, and firing off charged and concentrated attacks, we now slowly chipped him down until he reached low HP and transitioned to a phase 2, where he goes angry mode. I started this phase by buffing and debuffing him. Shido then used Really Big Punch, buffed his crit that does nothing, and used Heat Riser. After debuffing, charging, then buffing and healing, Shido unleashed a heat wave that we dodged. Then we responded with 2 powerful charge attacks from Ryuji and Yusuke. Unfortunately, Shido now used Mirachi-Dine into Megidolon, then finished off Makoto with Bloodbath, so I now had to cure Yusuke's fear, revive Makoto, and heal, hoping for better luck, but he charged and used Heat Riser. To stay alive, I had to debilitate and also buff up. After surviving, Ryuji used a Showtime, dropping him close to the trigger for his phase 3, so I charged with Yusuke to trigger it on the next turn. But first, he unleashed a barrage of AoE attacks that conveniently Joker dodged, placing him on full HP, so it was the perfect time to unleash Myriad Strikes to trigger phase 3, where he punches the ground so hard Joker's teammates get blown away, and Joker had to finish this by himself. With Joker's low SP, I had to use an item to debilitate. Now, the main problem here is if Shido hits Joker, he does like really high damage, so I had to heal and just pray for a dodge. To aid survival, I buffed Joker with Heat Riser that Shido copied, so Joker responded with Debilitate. So Joker doesn't take that much damage now, and because I don't have any good personas, the safest way for me to deal damage is with Satan, who doesn't do much damage. I additionally didn't really have many opportunities to actually attack. I was mostly healing, buffing, or debuffing. While doing this, my resources were slowly starting to run out, along with SP, so Shido's Heat Risers were becoming more of a problem, causing Joker to activate Enduring Soul. Then without options to safely buff or debuff, 2 turns later Joker died and we had to fight the boss again. Okay, so phase 1 and phase 2 are like not that hard, so 20 minutes later I'm back to phase 3, where just so you know, Shido and Joker's buffs and debuffs reset when you enter this phase, so you can't really prepare for it. So the main problem I'm having here is Joker doesn't have many good personas for this fight, as none of his personas with Heat Riser and Debilitate have Enduring Soul as that extra layer of protection. Except I actually did have one, but he's just in the Velvet Room and I forgot about him, and if I wanted to fix that mistake, I'd have to beat the first boss fight again. That I didn't really want to do, so this is why we're in a pretty bad position. Since I only had about 5 items that can debilitate, I'm putting a timer during this fight, as eventually I won't be able to debuff him, and his damage will ramp up to the point that I can't win. And that's pretty much what happened here, but before Joker died, I realized that the items that deal a flat 150 are kind of nice, since Joker's personas are bad, and even when concentrated and buffed, he doesn't do that much more damage than just using 2 of them. Anyway, around 15 minutes later, I concocted a new plan of trying to use Yusuke, who hit a little harder than Joker, to perfectly time his attack before phase 3, to drop Shido as low as possible to make it easier for Joker. But since I'm too lazy to count my damage, I couldn't really tell when I was about to start phase 3, so this wasn't that effective. Another problem I had is when Shido's on low HP, I got a little greedy, and tried to end the fight even if it put me in a position to game over, like on attempt 3. 20 minutes later again, I had a new plan of not using buffs and debuffs, and I just tried to kill Shido with items before Joker died. That with Enduring Soul, I thought may work if I was lucky, but again, I just died. Attempt 5 tried to utilize a Bad and Better who dealt more damage thanks to Ice Amp, but took more damage since they didn't have Crisis Control, so Joker died again. By this point, you might think I should just reload my save and view some better personas, but it was like 1 AM and I was stubborn. I was going to win on attempt 6. Damn it. Okay, so now I've spent over 2 hours on this fight alone, but this is lucky attempt number 7. So I gotta win this time. So Joker's on full HP and SP, and I debilitated Shido with an item. Shido attacks, and since Joker's on Abaddon, he takes like 1,000,000 damage that I heal and then dodge Shido's next attack, allowing me to debuff, so he buffs, then I debuff again, and thanks to that debuff, Joker dodges. Sets up a concentrate, takes a hit, dropping him to low HP, and responds with a Diamond Dust. Shido responds by debuffing Joker, and now I had to think of a plan to survive longer. So I switched to Satan, then defended, meaning Shido can't down him, and he takes less damage. In fact, enough that with Regenerate healing, Joker wasn't taking that much damage, and I used this to time out Shido's buffs and Joker's debuffs, giving me just 1 turn to attack with an item while he used Heat Riser. With more defense, I found another opportunity to attack at the cost of using up Enduring Soul. Since he was now buffed with Heat Riser, I couldn't risk attacking again, or he'll just kill me, so I had to switch to my only persona with Endure, attack, then survive with 1 HP thanks to Endure, allowing me to end the fight with a Hell Magatama. After the battle, a Shadow Shido apologizes to Joker, and then we see in the real world that Shido has been affected, so he decides to take some medicine to temporarily kill himself, to make the change of heart fail, which causes his boat to explode, so Ryuji has to run to pull a switch to drop down a boat, so everyone but would Ryuji could escape. Except he did escape, it's just everyone's blind and couldn't see him off screen. After Ryuji dies, we see the change of heart was a success, but when we return to LeBlanc, Sojiro was nowhere to be seen, until like a minute later where he arrives and explains he was just let free from Shido's place. After cleaning the place, I used Kawakame's massage to spend time in the jazz club, and for my remaining nights, I pretty much spent my time there. And for the daytime, I was pretty much just working out at the gym for more HP and SP. I also remembered to pick this guy up from the Velvet Room, who could have made Shido far easier. Speaking of the Velvet Room, since I had nothing to do, I was also doing the outings with the twins. Additionally, on Wednesday nights, I spent my time in the gym rather than the jazz gym, since on Wednesdays you can only boost SP by 10, which is pretty useless. On Sunday the 11th, the jazz gym was serving a drink that gave the incredible skill Debilitate, as I put on Ryuji. Next Saturday, I wanted to head into Memento, so I stocked up on some items, asked Chihaya for a fusion alarm, and made an accessory that increases endurance and gave the skill Dodge Physical. With that done, I entered Mementos with my objective being to reach the end and also slay the Reaper. So I found a nice floor, ran around for a few minutes, then the Reaper appeared. I then let him dance around and ambush me, which will reduce his actions per turn from 2 to 1. He begins the fight by concentrating, allowing me to use this ability that allows Joker to heat rise the whole team if an enemy initiates the fight. Makoto then deals good damage with a Showtime, Yusuke charges, and Ryuji debilitates. The Reaper responded with a concentrated Megi Dolon, and because of Makoto's accessory, the Ring of Gluttony, she has a Makarakan and Tetrakan effect that actually makes the Reaper just always choose to do concentrate into Megi Dolon, an almighty attack, so it can't hit us for weakness damage, significantly reducing the Reaper's offensive capabilities, and also making them extremely predictable. I really just had to heal after their attacks and maintain buffs and debuffs to have an easy time just gradually chipping them down. Once they died, we were rewarded with 5 levels and the accessory Divine Pillar, halving damage taken at the cost of making it impossible to dodge attacks. I now decided to explore deeper inside Mementos, encountering a request boss before entering the next area, who was pretty weak. They didn't do much damage, and Makoto does a lot of damage now, and they ended up killing themselves on Joker with his high counter. Before fighting the next mini-boss, I've used an Attis, who had the trait Vitality of the Tree, allowing the use of skills only available if surrounded, like for mob play to heat rise the whole party. I also fused some personas for itemization, like Michael, who gave Makoto an incredible gun, boosting her stats by 11. Now all these preparations just kind of made the next request boss easy, as it didn't really deal enough damage to kill anyone, and Yusuke a Showtime, and Yusuke again eventually chipped them down. I now fused again and ended up making a gun for Yusuke that gave 13 agility, and also made Lucifer, who I later itemized into a gun that gave Joker an extra 15 magic, allowing me to reach the end of Mementos. So I returned to the entrance, used some more, and my end result was a Mother Harlot with Ice Age, Ice Boost, Ice Amp, Mighty Gaze, along with Endure and Enduring Soul. I now looked at my personas to find any with the auto AoE buff skills. Right now I only had Shiva with Mataru Kasha, so I've used Ardha, who by leveling picked up auto Masuzu Kasha. Finally, I've used Cybele, who picked up the final auto skill. Then by fusing Cybele with Shiva, I had a persona with all the auto AoE buff skills, allowing me to start the fight with my entire team fully buffed. But why did I prepare so heavily? Well, it's because I installed a mod that allows me to fight the twins without New Game Plus. Before fighting them, I equipped Ryuji with an accessory that boosts his endurance and gave Dodge Physical, Yusuke the Ring of Greed, Joker had a stat stick, and Makoto had Vault Guardian. So after talking to Caroline, they decided to test our combat capabilities in a battle. I began the fight by debilitating both of them with Joker and Ryuji, then I used President's Insight on Joker with Yusuke from the Ring of Greed, then I ended my turn by using Makoto to extend our defense buff. Then Caroline attacked Ryuji, who dodged thanks to his accessory and Dodge Physical, and what's noteworthy about this fight is they always attacked Ryuji first. Then when he's down, they went for Yusuke, then Makoto, then finally Joker. My main source of damage for this fight was Joker's Ice Ages with Mother Harlots, to deal good damage on both of them, and Joker can continuously attack thanks to Yusuke's concentrates. On every turn now, I pretty much repeated the plan of using Debilitate to extend debuffs with Ryuji, use buffs with items or skills with Makoto, and Yusuke concentrated on Joker, who attacked. Fortunately, despite being on Merciless, they actually don't deal that much damage, and when they hit you, they switch targets, so dying wasn't really a problem, but I did have to heal on occasion with either an item on Ryuji or skill with Makoto. After 5 attacks from Joker, the twins were dropped below 50% of their max HP, so they healed each other, and since 6 of their turns has passed, they now switch to using magical attacks for 6 turns. and every 6 turns they change their attacks, with them getting stronger the longer the fight goes on. Anyway, since they used magic, dodge physical wasn't helping us anymore, and they were dishing out more damage. But we were still fine even if I had to heal more. So they steadily dished out damage, and on their 12th turn they switched to using nuclear and psi attacks, so there was no difference from the last phase. I was also pretty close to killing them. One more attack from Joker and I'd probably win, but Makoto's accessory repelled a Freydine, killing Caroline twice, making Justine revive her, so now I had to do 4,000 to her again. And since I didn't have any good single target personas, I now used items to charge Yusuke and relied on him to chip Caroline down at low enough that I could kill them both on the same turn. But that plan didn't exactly come to fruition, as they landed attack after attack, downing my whole party, initiating an all-out attack, telling me... Before fighting them again, I rerolled a level on Mother Harlot to give her a slight magic boost to maybe make it a little easier. On attempt 2, my plan didn't really change. I just debilitated with Ryuji, buffed with Makoto, used President's Insight on Joker, who attacked with Ice Age. This time we had no trouble again until they were on low HP. One more attack and I'd win. But Caroline hit Ryuji, followed up by downing Yusuke, then she missed Makoto. But now Justine attacked and also missed. So Joker ended the fight with an Ice Age, giving me like 4 levels worth of EXP. After the battle, they shared that they don't feel like themselves, then they followed this up by giving us the double bookmark. We now pick up some extra items and finally left mementos, then ran down to the Jazz Gin to boost Ryuji, and then it was the election day. During the evening, Shido confessed to his crimes and the change of heart was a success, causing everyone to celebrate, with Sai later promising to prosecute Shida. She now turns around, her drink disappears and leaves. Tomorrow we head back to school and hear about the exams in a few days, so we studied for them with the help of everyone boosting knowledge. After visiting the Jazz Gin, we then had the exams that I performed perfectly on. Then on the 23rd, we learned that Shido's inauguration as Prime Minister has been postponed due to his poor health. We also hear people still seem to believe in him despite his crimes, causing Sai to admit she failed, and crimes using the metaverse may advance to a national scale. She also seems to think that since everyone here knows the truth, they'll all be in danger, causing her to beg us to change the public's heart by stealing the treasure in mementos. But Morgana explains that doing that will cause the Phantom Thieves to lose their powers, so this was the Phantom Thieves' last job. We now maxed out Morgana's confidant and entered mementos for one final job. The Phantom Thieves were going to save Christmas. Before heading off to the depths, I fused Fukuni-Yushi that allowed me to fuse Yoshitsune, who's like the best persona in the game, because of Hasso Tobi, a 8-hit AoE physical attack. With that done, I head for the deepest part of Mementos Depths. Inside, there was a prison, with the prisoners seeming very happy to stay inside and not leave. We then were ambushed by these two guys. At first I just charged Joker, then they used Revolution, causing Makoto to crit, past the Joker, who eliminated them with the first hit of Hasso Tobi. We could now advance onward, and here I realized I'm extremely overleveled as I can just run through all the enemies, allowing me to reach the first of this palace's gimmick, where you have to turn the ground blue by running on the yellow ground. After another one of these, we reached another prison-like area, with this one containing the previous palace rulers, who seem to be completely different, wishing to live without thinking for themselves. We now journey deeper inside, finding a safe room and a good opportunity to itemize this area's treasure demon. Near the safe room was a mini-boss who literally died to one hit from Makoto into an all-out attack, rewarding us with an item that allowed us to drop this floor down, making it possible to solve the floor puzzle. We now encountered a giant door along with a mini-boss fight. They now immediately attacked for no damage, and Yusuke just charged Joker, who one-shot them. After experiencing the riveting shake-up of the hidden floors, we proceeded on to the final major area for this place, where you have to solve 3 floor puzzles, with the first one opening a way to make the second one possible, that makes it possible to complete the third, which led to an area where we used the grappling hook, slid down, and found the treasure. A giant cup surrounded by jail cells. Since the treasure was too big to steal, we just had to destroy it in a battle. I began the fight by firing off a Hasso Tobi, then Ryuji debilitated, and Yusuke and Makoto buffed. What's pretty convenient about these endgame bosses is they usually use almighty attacks that bypass weaknesses and resistances, so they can't down us and don't do much damage, unlike Joker, who almost killed the treasure with another Hasso Tobi, causing the prisoners to yell out for us to stop, letting the Holy Grail use Will of the People to regenerate HP, ending the battle. Godlike voice now calls us foolish, introduces themselves as the Holy Grail, then says the public wishes to be chained down and surrender their will, causing them to challenge us to a battle once again, where I pretty much just repeated what I did last time. time, causing the Grail to heal again. Since my team wasn't auto-buffed since Joker started on Yoshitsune, I had to use Mataru Kasha with Ryuji. The Grail now healed again and was slowly turning a bright gold. Then after Joker's next attack, they fully healed again and the battle ended. Holy Grail now states that they will encroach upon reality, the ground then begins to fade to white and Morgana remembers everything, and we return to the real world. That suddenly starts to like turn into hell where it rains down blood and there are giant spikes everywhere, and there's like a convenient Sonic level in the sky. Now the public begins to no longer believe in the Phantom Thieves, causing them to slowly disappear. Once the fan site result drops to 0, we now wake up in the Velvet Room. Igor then says we failed to change mankind, then sentences us to death by Justine and Caroline, where we can't move and don't have a persona, I think, because we don't have our usual weaknesses. Anyway, after hitting Joker a couple times, they remembered that they were torn in half by a malevolent intent, causing Igor to go, hee I am pretty evil. Then we fused them together, making Lavenza their true form, who now stands against Igor, who is now Igor? He evilly begins to levitate and reveals himself as God of Control, who has decided to kill all humans, which is bad, but he does offer us a deal of reverting the world back to its previous state, allowing Joker to still change people's hearts and gain fame. We now decline the offer and they disappear into an evil red flash. Then the real Igor appears and says go find your friends, we locked them up, go talk to them. So we go do that, and one by one they regain their motivation to fight. So we now return to Igor and Arn asks, where's Morgana? Yeah, he was like hiding under the bed or something, and now he's remembered that he was born here and his objective was to fight against God. Lavenza then explains God's evil plan to remove free thinking to create eternal peace. He also gave Akechi his power to fight against Joker to decide the fate of the world. They now just kind of say go kill God, so we run out of the Velvet Room. Leading to Shibuya, the public now slowly starts to remember about the Phantom Thieves and it was time to go kill God. This first area is pretty much a linear hall that led straight to the first mini-boss. Where we charged Joker, they summoned some angels, then a Hasso Tobi dropped them low enough that Ryuji could kill them. Then Joker and Yusuke could clean up from there. The public now starts to come to their senses, while Joker advanced further onward and encountered the next mini-boss, who used Heat Riser and charged, but died before they could attack, so it didn't really matter. The next mini-boss actually attacked with Divine Judgment into 3 regular attacks, then ended the turn with Divine Judgment, but Joker crit, so they just exploded. After like another completely straightforward path, we reached the final mini-boss, Michael, who just summoned again, so Joker killed the summoned guys, and Ryuji followed up, then debilitated, and Yusuke finished them off with a crit. After hearing Lavenza's words of encouragement for beating the twins, we swung in and fell like 100 feet down to find Igor, who transforms into Holy Grail, says he'll pass judgment on us, and begins a boss fight. At the start, we were given an option to send someone to cut the red supply lines that heal the Grail, so I sent Makoto, and after Joker attacked, she climbed up one of the hands. Ryuji now debilitated, and Yusuke charged Joker. The Grail now attacked, but it's almighty damage, so they didn't knock us down or deal much damage, allowing Joker to fire off a charged Hasatobi, allowing Makoto to punch down the red lines to stop it healing. Since they were also on low HP, I carefully dropped them down as low as possible so I could switch Joker to his persona with the auto buffs in preparation for the next boss fight, as this one was now over after a God's Hand, which caused the Grail to turn into like literally just God with the name former Holy Grail, who now says the name is Yaldabaoth, and says I gotta kill people because decisions are pain, so we now fight them. I start the fight by doing the exact same thing I always do, attack, debuff, charge, then heal. Yaldabaoth now deals huge damage, and Joker lands a charged Hasatobi that drops like 40% of his HP. Ryuji now concentrates Joker, Yusuke charges him, and Makoto buffs. So Yaldabaoth whips out the big gun that inflicts lust on Joker, that he just heals since he has instant heal. Joker now takes down the big gun, so Yaldabaoth brings out Big Bell and doesn't attack. Then he destroys the arm and one more Hasatobi and Yaldabaoth's done. So I punched him with Ryuji, slashed him with Yusuke, but that still wasn't enough, meaning now they could bring out Big Gun, Big Bell, Big Book, and Big Sword, then take big damage and die. But not actually, because we actually just lose in the cutscene. After continuously smiting us down with powerful lightning bolts, the last slivers of hope begin to disappear. People begin to explode, so our good friend Mishima says, the Phantom Thieves are oh so awesome and oh so cool, inspiring everyone. Most confidants now shout out their words of encouragement, so the Phantom Thieves stand up and the entire world believes the Phantom Thieves are real. Joker now breaks his chains and Arsene evolves into Big Guy. Everyone now gets restored to full HP and Yaldabaoth's powerful attack is negated. Joker now calls forth Saturnile, aims his gun, and shoots, completing the iconic JRPG objective of Kill God. The outer mouth now transforms into the treasure and we get teleported back to Shibuya, where it's still raining blood, but then it stops and the world begins to return to normal, and we suffer the heartbreaking loss of Morgana, who disappears into a bright light. We now hear the public has come to their senses and they don't accept Shido as Prime Minister. The thieves now celebrate and it begins to snow. Later on at night, Sai asks us to hand ourselves into the police to provide a testimony to prove Shido guilty. But before accepting her deal, a familiar voice calls out saying,
"There's no need for that."
As Akechi is actually alive and asks Sai to take Joker's place to testify against Shido, saying he wants to repay his debts. He then leaves while Sai promises to settle Shido's case. We now return to Leblon and Futaba buys a turkey. Sojiro now said that he supports us, then we proceeded on to Christmas Day, where they celebrated with a party and are happy about Akechi. Then after sampling the food, they remembered about Morgana, who conveniently was just at the door, and he's like a real cat now. With Morgana here, they had a joyful celebration until the evening. We now skip ahead 6 days until the 31st, where they were having a New Year's Eve celebration. On the TV, they even announced that Shido will be charged for his crimes and Joker's criminal record will be overturned. Morgana now wishes to be like the guy on TV. After Futaba and Yoshizawa say they expect the new year will be great, everyone leaves, we fall asleep, and wake up at Shujin. Joker knew he had to head home, and was guided to the entrance by a butterfly, with the desires of his allies echoing across his head along the way. Once he reached the way out, a voice from the intercom questioned him on why he was leaving. After hearing the words, "Let's meet again," Joker escaped. And now it was New Year's Day, where Yoshizawa asked Joker to head to a shrine, but first we had to help out Sojiro, where we encountered Studley Guy, who seemed to know us. As the bell rang, a dressed-up Futaba appeared who says she picked out the outfits with her mother. After telling Sojiro about our plans with Yoshizawa, he allowed us to leave and meet her, where after an anime slowdown effect, they pray at a shrine and meet with the other Phantom Thieves, where Ryuji asks them if they want to go somewhere to eat, but Makoto was busy with her family. Haru is planning on dining with her father, and Futaba plans on hanging out with her mother, causing Ryuji to consider going somewhere with the track team, and Arn plans to go somewhere with Shiho, leaving just Joker and Yoshizawa, who gets contacted by her father to go to a family get-together, so she walks us to the station where we meet her father. After returning to Leblon, Joker realizes that what he just saw wasn't normal, like the guy he was sleeping with, Studley Guy, and also woman with glasses. Then Akechi showed up, saying Joker knows and they have to discuss something outside, where the first concern was how is Akechi alive? He then changes the topic to his detainment by the police, saying mysteriously after being questioned he was released with no explanation whatsoever. Other mysteries like Wakaba being alive also came up in the conversation. Then Joker gets called by Yoshizawa, who spotted an abnormality in Odaiba, asking us to head over, that Akechi agrees on and we go together, where he says we should check the palace out. Once they entered the palace, they progressed deeper inside, learning that the palace ruler wants to assist everyone and make them happy. They then encountered one of the shadows and a battle began, with Akechi using Riot Gun, then Joker followed up with Hasotobi to end the battle. After taking note that the palace ruler conducts research and wants to relieve pain, we could head deeper inside. And what's awesome about this part of the game is Akechi is the navigator, and his voice lines are amazing.
This enemy is a sad little weakling. Let's put it out of its misery.
Anyway, further inside we see a video showing Yoshizawa's father grieving for her sister Sumire. She then feels as if she's forgotten something important. Then after Akechi asks Joker a question, they move out, but Yoshizawa's pain persists, and we fight another mini-boss, who's immune to physical, so Joker had to use Ice Age. That caused Akechi to follow up, setting up for an all-out attack that ended the battle. The Shadow then told us to witness the truth, where after turning around, we saw Girl with Hair in Bun, who supposedly had performed well in gymnastics, and calls out to Yoshizawa calling her Sumire, causing her to freak out, with the palace ruler's voice calling out, "If you keep pushing on, you'll find nothing but heartache," then says head on down and we'll meet him there. Once we arrive, Man in Suit turns around and we recognize him as Maruki, who admits the altered reality is his doing, as he's gained the power to alter reality and make it whatever the people wish for. then says Yoshizawa feels pain whenever she remembers the past, so she asks to learn the truth, that he shares with a video, showing Sumire felt depressed at her lack of ability in gymnastics compared to her sister, causing her to storm off into the middle of a road where a car was coming and then Kasumi jumped in the way, sacrificing herself to save Sumire. Frozen in shock, Yoshizawa's hair magically begins to untie itself and she remembered she's not Kasumi but Sumire. She now fell to the floor from emotional pain. Maruki then explains that it was his doing that she believed herself to be Kasumi, as she wanted to be her sister to have the talent to achieve her dead sister's dream. After Maruki explained why he did this, he then says he wants to change reality to save everyone who's suffering, and the old world will be as if it never existed. Sumire then says she can't accept being the one responsible for her sister's death and asks Maruki to change her back. After disapproving of Maruki's reality, a cutscene plays, and if I had a nickel for every time one of the party members were grabbed by a tentacle monster, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it was weird it happened twice. Maruki then asked to talk it out, but Akechi refused, so he was forced to call in a mini-boss that we now had to fight. At first, they used Megidolon into Death Scythe, then used one more to use 2 Agons. Akechi then debilitated while Joker charged. They now only used Megidolon, then followed up by missing, so Akechi healed and Joker one-shot the boss with a Hasotobi. But they survived and healed to full, so Joker and Akechi had to team up for a showtime to land the killing blow. After the battle, Maruki took Sumire and told us to spend the next week living in the reality he's created, to decide if it really is that bad. After he disappeared, we left the palace, talked with Akechi, and said we'd meet up with him again in 1 week's time. Then after we return to the Blom, we see that Morgana is happy living as a human. After resting, it was time to find our other teammates. To find them, we had to ride the train because they stop you from fast traveling for this part of the game. In the underground mall, we found Arn, who was with Shiho, who now wasn't traumatized by Kamoshida and was an excellent volleyball player. We ended the conversation by trying to remind her about the true reality. Then we head home, fell asleep, then tomorrow we had to find someone else that we could find with the help of Morgana, who oddly enough still has his old voice lines despite having a different VA for this form. Anyway, at the station we found Makoto and Sai, whose father is no longer dead and she has a happy relationship with her family now. On the next day, we visited Akihabara to find Sojiro, Futaba, and Wakiba, with Futaba happily living out her life with her mother. After that, we found Haru in Kichijoji with her father, who was happily discussing about a new store, with her father seeming much kinder and considerate now. We then journeyed off to Ueno, where Yusuke was observing his mother's painting. He then said that Madarame has helped honor the memory of his mother and is a man he can truly look up to. Finally, we found Ryuji at Shujin, who is now a member of the track team and was able to fully recover from his knee injuries. After we left, Akechi contacted us and relayed information to us relevant to Maruki's reality. He then says he refuses to live in a reality controlled by someone else, rejecting Maruki's reality. Once the conversation ends, we skip ahead to tomorrow, arrive at the stadium, then after preparing, we were ready to enter Maruki's palace. But before entering, we see a brief scene where the other Phantom Thieves enter Leblon and slowly start to remember the truth until... We then switched back to Joker, ran through an easy area and found Maruki, where he asks one final time, can we accept this reality as the true reality? A world free from pain and suffering, where everyone could live happy, peaceful lives. Joker could stay with Sojiro for another year. Ryuji could return to the track team. As a human, Morgana could enjoy life with Arn. Arn could have Shiho back. Madarame could tutor Yusuke once again. Makoto could live happily with her family. Futaba would be with her mother again, and the same would be true for Haru and her father. Akechi could enjoy competing with his rival. Finally, Sumire could achieve her sister's dream by living as Kasumi Yoshizawa, and we could even know a skilled photographer. It would be a happy ending. But if we do that, the game just ends, so we had to refuse. That Sumire couldn't accept, and decided to kill Joker, starting a battle where she opens with Dazzler that Joker breaks out of with Detox, then debilitates her, and takes a sword dance. She uses the one more to just do nothing while Joker charges. After unleashing 2 sword dances, Joker ended the fight with Hasotobi. After the battle, she begs Joker to let her stay as Kasumi, causing Maruki to step forward, give me a nickel again, and cause Cendrillon to go berserk, so we had to fight them in a boss fight, where Maruki summoned enemies and Cendrillon drained them to restore its HP. Okay, so I used Attis to fully buff Joker and Akechi and used Debilitate on Cendrillon, but she just got Heat Risered, causing her to deal massive damage with vocal Vorpal Blade, triggering Joker's Enduring Soul into Sword Dance that Akechi could only just survive thanks to Endure. Joker now used Hasotobi to kill evil synthetic organism, then Akechi debilitated. Maruki summoned more enemies and Sandrion drained one for more health, so I attacked to kill the other enemy and used a B to restore Akechi to full. After Maruki summoned more enemies, the battle ended. Then just as Sandrion was about to unleash a big attack, Boy's voice saves us, and the battle resumes with a full team this time. After dodging her first Vorpal Blade, I buffed the whole team, debuffed her, and charged Joker. The weaker enemy now used Heat Riser and missed and attacked, while Sandrion knocked down Akechi and dropped him to 1 HP. We responded by attacking with Joker, debuffing with Akechi, healing with Makoto, and charging Joker with Yusuke. Maruki summoned some more enemies, Sandrion drained them, then with Hasotobi and Levitane I ended the fight. We now rescued Sumire, and Maruki was shocked that everyone here rejected his reality. Since he wanted to end this peacefully, he said we should take care of Yoshizawa, and we should tell him our final answer on the 3rd of February. We now leave the palace. Akechi suggests everyone teams up and we leave for Leblon, where Futaba explained what happened before they rescued us, then we go to sleep and head off to school, encountering Sumire, who apologizes for yesterday. Later on, Lavenza calls Joker's phone and says she wants to meet everyone in person at Shujin. Before that happened, we had a heart-to-heart with Morgana, causing his two personas to fuse together to create Diego, who learns an extremely mediocre ability. Tomorrow we followed a blue butterfly to the nurse's office that reminded me that if you check the strength confidant now, there's a blue butterfly there that flies around. Anyway, when everyone arrives, Lavenza explains that Maruki has altered reality by tampering in mementos. He also has just essentially replaced Yaldabaoth now. Lavenza additionally says that like with Yaldabaoth, the world will fuse with mementos eventually, and once that happens, it will be impossible to awaken to the true reality and the world will be fully under Maruki's control. Then says this will occur in around a month's time, so February 3rd seemed to be our time limit. Lavenza then leaves, and we see that Sumire was listening in on their conversation, who later shows up at Leblon and says she's done running from the past and is trying to figure out what she wants to do. After that, we sleep, head to school, then decide to head to the hideout to enter Maruki's palace, where Sumire was waiting for us, and after putting on her red ribbon, transformed into her metaverse attire, and under the codename Violet, finally joined the team. We then journeyed deeper inside, and Sumire got surrounded by the evil ceiling monsters, and she initially couldn't summon her persona. So she takes the mask off, thinks of her sister, and reawakens to her persona, beginning a fight, where she just downs everyone and ends the fight with an all-out attack. After the fight, we get some cryptic dialogue again, and her confidant changes to show that she has another 5 ranks. We now enter the room with Maruki from before, and used a grappling hook to climb around and find a strong enemy with Fafnir that I triggered Bullet Hail on. This guy's pretty strong. They repel physical, I think they're immune to shock, and they also have no weakness. So the easiest way to beat them is to freeze them, but I wasn't lucky this time around, and a freeze guard on Joker would probably be the easiest way to do this. Since I couldn't kill them, they attacked while debilitated, so we were fine and brute forced them with an Ice Age. After leaving that room, we found 2 shadows and chased after them, engaging a mini-boss fight. That is really hard. With the idea I could enter this room now that I rushed through and I didn't really do anything. At the end of the room there was like a monitoring room with a mini-boss fight. At first I tried to freeze them, but that failed, then tried for a crit with Yoshitsune. That I got, and followed up with another that got repelled with counter. Fortunately, their Mabufudines dealt minor damage, so Sumire could charge Joker. Akechi could debilitate, causing Joker's next Hasotobi to deal massive damage. They responded by not attacking, then Sumire crit, then passed to Joker, who disposed of them. We now couldn't proceed onward, and it appeared we'd have to head into mementos to open the way to progress further. So we returned to the real world, and we could now obviously start advancing Sumire's confidant during the day. And we could talk once more with every party member, with them apologizing for enjoying Maruki's reality, then they end up powering up their traits and gaining a powerful ultimate skill. With the one that I wanted to pick up now was Yusuke's, which will be really good in long battles. And also his persona is way cooler now. For the nights, I was just visiting the jazz club again, this time prioritizing Sumire as I theorized her passive may be pretty good, as it can stop enemies from downing you. And she also has high crit physical skills that are pretty useful from this point onward. On Sundays in the jazz as Jin, we can now pick up some pretty good skills, like right now, Ollie Dance, that halves opponent's accuracy that I gave to Yusuke. So now I was ready to head into Mementos, that now had these cables that led to the room with the Holy Grail, where there was now a path for us to ascend. After 16 floors of peak gameplay, we reached the end and shut down the system. That should mean we can progress further in Maruki's palace. Before I left, I completed 2 requests, with the first being easy. They missed on their first attack opportunity, and we got a lucky shock with an item, stunning them for a turn, letting Joker, Sumire, and Akechi finish them off. The next guy was immune to physical, and seemed resistant to status effects, so I couldn't figure out a way to down them, meaning I wasn't dealing much damage, while they gradually set up a charge, some buffs, and debuffs, leading to them using Hasotobi that missed, giving us just enough time to end them with Riot Gun. Before I left, I tried to find a crystal skull that is the treasure demon you can find in the area before fighting Yaldabaoth. So to find the skull, I had to fight the regular encounters around floor 12, and just hope the treasure demon was there. This took me half an hour. I immediately itemized it for an accessory, granting a big stat boost and angelic grace to increase magic evasion. So I now left Mementos. Before heading back to Maruki's palace, I did a few fusions, with my eventual objective across the next in-game week being to have a persona of every element with single target severe tier magic with boost and amp for big damage. When I was done for now, I was ready to enter Maruki's palace again. We proceeded past the area that was blocked before, and now there was this section where you can find nodes to learn more about Maruki. There was also the first will seed, then through a vent there was a recording, showing a younger Maruki talk with a completely emotionally broken Rumi, his ex-girlfriend. Then after she has a post-traumatic episode, Maruki awakens to his power, then treats Rumi, causing her to forget about her past trauma, but she has also completely forgotten about Maruki, so he leaves her be to keep her happy. With the information from that recording, we could open the way forward, leading to another area where we eventually found a will seed, along with another recording, and learnt more about Maruki's past. This time we see that because his research lacked evidence, he lost his funding, then he just gets drunk and swears to complete his research to help people for Rumi's sake, allowing us to progress past another locked door to an exam room, where they were testing to see if according to Maruki we were mentally sound, with the first question's answer being call for help. Then for the second question, the correct answer is to give up and try something else. For the final question, the correct answer was to steal the evil hearts to help society. After leaving that area, we found a mini-boss fight against Cert. He's like pretty durable and resistant to physical attacks, but he just kinda doesn't do that much damage. At least he didn't until he concentrated, but he just missed, so I buffed crit with Sumire and used those crits to eventually end the battle. There was another one of these doors past the guy, so we had to listen to a recording to get past, but this time we had to find the videotape first. We now checked what was on the tape, and it showed Maruki's first interaction with Sumire. With that information, we then opened the door to an area with a change of scenery, with a new gimmick where you can change what colors are active to create pathways forward, and also block the way forward eventually. This ends up leading to the area with the third will seed where you fight Fafnir, where I tried to freeze them with Yusuke and debilitated with Joker. After they nullified our resistances, Yusuke attacked once again, and Joker immediately after, resulting in a freeze, allowing Akechi to fire off Levitine, ending the fight with an all-out attack. Then we climbed up the large stairs and watched the final tape, showing Maruki's research wasn't funded due to Shido, and we also see him fully awaken to his persona. We then fought a mini-boss that Joker managed to shock with a Thunder Rain, helping the team deal high damage with all-out attacks, but unfortunately we couldn't end the battle on that turn, where they just changed paces and nullified our electric resistances that we definitely have. We couldn't kill them from here, so they attacked, but they actually deal like no damage, and with Makarakan we deflected the attack back and shocked them, helping us secure the kill with Sumire's gun, allowing us to reach the end of the palace and identify the treasure. They now expected Maruki to meet up with Joker on the 3rd of February, which was the date they'd give him the calling card. So I now left the palace and picked up a gun on Yusuke that could be customized to inflict shock. Then I spent the next couple of days doing the same thing of going to the gym during the day and boosting stats at night. And I also picked up the skill Arm Master on Sumire. While I was doing this, I also burnt incense in the Velvet Room for minor stat buffs. Additionally, I also maxed out the Faith Confidant, triggering Sumire Mirai's second awakening, and I also picked up everyone else's ultimate ability and trait upgrade, with Ryuji's being the most important of a full party charge, as I was planning on using him for the next 2 boss fights. We now entered Mementos, and Lavenza asked us to fight her, but we're not doing that right now, as I wanted to reach max level, and the easiest way to farm levels was to just kill the Reaper, who was pretty easy at this point in the game. While grinding, I also completed the extremely tedious task of collecting every stamp. I also completed some requests, but I'm not going to pretend like they're hard because like they just don't do any damage. After this, I decided to fight the optional boss, Jose, who was at the end of Mementos and wants to vent by challenging us to a fight. After we dodged his attempt to run us over, Joker debilitated, Ryuji charged everyone, and we dealt some damage. That made me realize he resists physical, so a physical attacking party is probably not the best for this, but we'll manage. Jose then used a nuke bomb, then followed up by dispelling his debuffs, so Joker attacked, we reapplied the debuffs, and healed with items. Jose attacked again, but this time followed up by confusing our whole team, but Joker broke out and used Salvation to fully heal the team, allowing Ryuji to charge Joker. Unfortunately, Jose confused us again, and we couldn't break free, so he attacked once more. Joker then used Salvation again, and Ryuji fired off a Showtime for pretty good damage. From this point onward, Jose didn't really do anything special until he was just about to die, as he fired off some fireworks that I assume does damage on his next turn, but he died before that happened. He now gave us the Star Water tray and left. So we returned to the entrance of Mementos to talk to Lavenza, and then the boss fight began, that we're doing on Merciless, so she deals insane damage. She begins the fight by dispelling your buffs, so auto buff passives don't help here, and she also uses Heat Riser, so we debilitated twice, then buffed with Yusuke and Sumire. Lavenza then cleansed her debuffs, fired off an Inferno on Sumire, dropping her to 1 HP, and she followed up with a regular attack, triggering Final Guard. We then had to debilitate her again, and Ryuji charged, then Yusuke and Sumire tried to land a crit. Lavenza stayed on the offense by inflicting everyone with Dizzy, and killed Sumire with Thunder Rain. Fortunately, Futaba activated her ultimate ability to fully heal everyone. I continued to try for a crit, but that failed. Fortunately, Lavenza missed her next attack, then the one after that, but the third hit and killed Sumire. We then revived her, and eventually landed the crit, allowing me to pass to Joker, and I now actually utilize the gimmick for this phase of the fight, where you're supposed to hit her with the opposite element that she uses to attack you. So when she uses ice, I hit her with fire for massive damage, transitioning her to phase 2, where you have to land a technical hit before her next turn, or else she says you die and she kills you, which happened here as my plan to hit a technical was to shock her with Yusuke's gun, or Ryuji's Zeodyne, that didn't exactly go as planned. On attempt 2, I was a little luckier, allowing for a phase shift early. For phase 2, I made a slight change to Ryuji's gun, to Megiddo Fire, so now he could fire off 3 attacks with a high chance to burn, that I landed, then used an item to hit a technical, and passed the Joker to land another technical this time for massive damage, transitioning her to phase 3, where we now had to land a crit or else she kills us. So I punched her with Ryuji, Brave Bladed her with Yusuke, and Sumire did the thing that she's meant to do, allowing her to pass to Joker, who dealt enough damage to transition her to phase 4 of the fight, where she says she's no longer holding back. We survived her first few attacks by activating Final Guard. Ryuji then charged the whole team, but for this phase, if you use supportive abilities, she immediately acts and attacks with her chainsaw. That hits for massive damage, and if she downs you, she gets an extra turn, and that's exactly why I died on this attempt. She started to wear my team down, so I had to heal. But then she hit Joker, downed him, charged, and since he can't dodge anymore, the right gun just killed him. On my next try, I stopped trying for a crit on phase 1, and just used items to concentrate Joker to land strong magic attacks, and I had a pretty easy time making it back to the final phase. For this phase, while definitely not the most effective strategy, I just used physical attacks and hoped for a crit. The biggest issue here is she just kills you, because it's really hard to utilize buffs, debuffs, and healing here without taking massive damage, and if you choose to not buff, you just do less damage and she does more. So it's really easy to die and not kill her. So this time, 6 turns passed, so she utilized a concentrated Megidolon, for close to 3,000 damage, killing everyone who had already used Endure. Now, despite coming exceptionally close to winning this time, Lavenza ended up landing a charged right gun on Joker, and since he already used Endure and Enduring Soul, he just died. On my next try, I kinda stopped buffing to try to not die to Lavenza's attacks, and I actually landed a crit with Sumire that helped us deal decent damage. She then dealt massive damage with Wild Thunder, but we survived. Futaba's ultimate ability activated, letting us dish out some damage, then barely survive her next 2 attacks, then end the fight with Hasotobi. She then thanked us, hands us the intricate bookmark, and deems us the world's greatest man. The final reward she grants us is the Omnipotent Orb, an accessory I can't use. With nothing left to do, I could leave mementos and spend the remainder of my days waiting until the second, where Sumire contacted us and triggered her 3rd tier Persona Awakening. Then at night, Maruki called and said he'll drop by LeBlanc to talk to us. After confirming Sumire's okay, he assures us the reality he will create will be a happy one, then asks if we can accept his reality. Also, Akechi was hiding outside. Maruki now explains that Akechi is only here right now because of Maruki's doing, so if we fight against him and succeed, Akechi will die again. We now hand him the calling card, and Joker and Akechi talk together alone, with Akechi saying he can't accept this reality and being under Maruki's control for the rest of his days. Completely fine with dying to deny this reality. After confirming Joker's intent to fight Maruki, he says let's return to our true reality, and awakens to his 3rd persona and leaves. Then on the next day, everyone gathered at LeBlanc, and we entered Maruki's palace. After listening to I Believe for the whole minute it plays across the entire game, we reached the top of the palace and found Maruki, who says he'll fix the world, then calls forth his persona, then the final battle begins. At first, I was mainly just trying to figure out the tentacle's weakness, so Maruki attacked for low damage and regenerated the tentacle that was weak to physical. I then figured out one of the tentacles was weak to fire, then passed to Sumire to take out the one weak to physical, and used Akechi's Rebellion Blade to attempt to one-shot another tentacle, but that failed. So Yusuke had to use an item to kill that revealed a nuclear weakness, and then passed to Sumire to deal big damage to Asafoth and debilitate it. Maruki then charged Asafoth and regenerated the tentacles again, who were no problem now since I knew their weaknesses, allowing me to pass to Sumire for massive damage, causing Maruki to move on to phase 2, where you could no longer do a certain action. At first, it was magical skills, making it impossible for me to defeat the tentacles weak to magic. Eternal Radiance was now unleashed along with Evil Smile together with Taro Kasha. Now we couldn't use physical skills, which was no problem. We took out all the tentacles and got some damage in on Asafoth. They now used Eternal Radiance and procced Final Guard with Raining Seeds. With status effects on various party members, now was a good time to use Salvation. We then chained around weakness damage, with the baton passes ending with Akechi, dealing massive damage with Rebellion Blade, causing him to use Tyrant Stance, and he now starts to call out to your party members, where they respond with their sentence. We now used Cosmic Flare to take out the tentacles, then everyone defended to survive Tyrant's chaos. Now the fight was pretty much over as we had taken down Asafoth, dropping Maruki to like 1 HP, and Joker killed him. So we could now take the treasure and try to escape, but Maruki wasn't done yet, and he awakens to his 2nd persona, the Colossal Titan, and after a speech begins the battle again. I began the fight by using Hasotobi, then charged Sumire, debilitated Maruki, then attacked with Masquerade. Maruki then responds by dealing a flat amount of damage of 300 to everyone, and then healing the total damage dealt. We now healed and attacked again, with Maruki using Grand Palm to almost kill Sumire. So we just spent everyone's turn now just supporting, and Maruki used Grand Palm again. With Hasotobi, Maruki now died and a cutscene began, where Maruki enters inside his persona to protect him, and the battle starts once again, with him using full force to drop everyone to 1 HP. We now healed, buffed and debuffed, and we don't do damage to him. So he changes to attack position and punches us on the next turn. Then the cutscene begins where Adam Kadmon punches everyone, but they survive with friendship powers, allowing Joker to climb up to Adam Kadmon's head, aim his gun, and fire his gun to take Maruki down. After he says some stuff, the palace begins to collapse, so everyone runs to Morgana, and he now turns into a helicopter, allowing them to escape, but Maruki stops them, so Joker drops down to confront him, where he asks to vent his frustrations. Then they both lose their persona powers and have a fist fight, where they definitely punch each other and not just the air. Then the ground below Maruki cracks, Joker grabs his hand, and Morgana helps rescue the two. Joker then wakes up in the Velvet Room, they say good job. We then cut back to the others, who are told by Sojiro that Joker is in jail because Akechi didn't help him in the true reality. They also find out Akechi is dead and try their best to help out Joker, who after he receives the World Arcana, is visited by Sai, saying he's free to go. We arrive at LeBlanc, we move on to Valentine's Day, then the day after Valentine's Day, we then skip ahead to March, where everyone seemed motivated to cause their dreams to come true, which will cause the group to go their separate ways. We then skipped ahead to White Day. Now 5 days later, it was the day before Joker was scheduled to leave, so we had to say bye to everyone, with each maxed out confidant giving an item of importance to them. The other NPCs also have some extra dialogue, with the most important being the man outside the Jazz Gin, reminding Joker about Akechi's glove and their promise to have a rematch. After speaking with everyone, Joker said his final farewells at Leblon, then met everyone on his way to the train station, where they were being followed. So he had to be helped out by Maruki, who is a taxi driver now for some reason. At the station, Sumire gave her final farewells, then Joker sits on the train and the credits roll. Okay, so my general thoughts on this challenge are it was a pretty good challenge. It made the game much harder and changed what abilities felt strong, like how I was using Crisis Control throughout the game to reduce damage taken. Outside of Kamoshida, the difficulty felt just right. I wasn't losing all the time, but it still felt sufficiently challenging. And since it's been 4 years since I last played this game, it also sort of made me realize how easy this game is unmodded, as in the mid game you can just kind of kill the mini bosses before they can do anything, and in the end game the enemies just don't do that much damage. What also made the end game easy is I didn't make every persona weak to Almighty, and if I was weak to Almighty it would have made the end game a little more interesting. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it if you want me to play more Persona games, and you can tell me in the comments what game you think would be good for a challenge similar to this. Anyway, subscribe if you want to subscribe. See ya, bye.